Chapter 1099. Mu Hongyan's bewitching smile was only for Tang Zheng. It disappeared in a flash, and no one else noticed it. When they walked through the door, they avoided most of the gazes and walked together. Mu Hongyan stopped in front and waited for Tang Zheng to hurry over. "Why are you back?" Tang Zheng stood in front of her and asked curiously. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a touch of deep affection, but he quickly returned to his indifferent appearance and said, "I just finished dealing with the relevant matters in Europe a few days ago and returned to Beijing last night. However, I was told that you had already left Beijing and came to the pharmaceutical factory. Of course, I couldn't sit back and do nothing when such a big thing happened in the pharmaceutical factory, so I rushed over without stopping." Tang Zheng suddenly understood. Looking at the imperceptible tiredness on her face, he said with heartache, "It's been hard on you." "It's not hard at all." King of Medicine also walked over quickly and said gratefully, "Xiaomu, fortunately you came. This group of reporters is too difficult to deal with. If it weren't for you, I definitely wouldn't have been able to get away." Mu Hongyan smiled faintly and said, "Senior King of Medicine has worked hard. These things should have been handled by me. You only need to worry about the professional issues." King of Medicine sighed and said, "The situation this time is very serious. Even the reporters are here. I'm afraid things will get worse." "Haha, that's not necessarily true. However, the situation now is indeed very serious. I'm afraid you don't know that the matter of this medical accident has already been exposed on the internet. Many people are talking about it, or rather, they are condemning us." Mu Hongyan's tone was calm, but these words were heard by Tang Zheng and King of Medicine. They looked at each other at the same time, unable to hide their surprise. The enemy was really insidious and cunning. They had already started rumors and caused trouble on the internet. The King of Medicine's face suddenly changed and he asked, "Then what should we do?" Mu Hongyan said calmly, "Senior King of Medicine, you don't have to worry about these things. I will take care of it. I will hold a press conference later to explain in detail what happened this time. I believe that there is absolutely nothing wrong with our medicine, right?" Obviously, Mu Hongyan was very confident in King of Medicine's professional skills. Although she did not know the details, her guess was not far from the truth. The King of Medicine nodded with relief. "We already have the preliminary results of the investigation. This time, someone deliberately set us up. He bribed an employee and poisoned the patient. We didn't discover it in time and finally lost a life, leading to such serious consequences." Mu Hongyan's face turned cold. He didn't know the details, but after hearing these words, he deeply felt the danger hidden within. Someone actually used such a despicable method to deal with them. If this could be tolerated, what could not? "Do you have a specific suspect?" "No, the employee who was bribed has been killed, and the clues are gone," the King of Medicine said regretfully. Tang Zheng said, "Let's go in first. You must be tired after such a long journey." Mu Hongyan nodded, and they went to the office together. This office was specially prepared for Mu Hongyan, but she didn't come here often. "The enemy is very aggressive. If we don't find out who is behind this as soon as possible, it will be too passive for us," Mu Hongyan said impatiently as soon as she sat down. Tang Zheng and the King of Medicine certainly understood this point, but there were no clues from the pharmaceutical factory, so they could only investigate from the outside. Since this matter has been exposed on the internet, let's use technical means to find out where it first came from. "Follow the vine to the melon and see if there are any clues," Tang Zheng suggested. Mu Hongyan nodded. "This is one way. In addition, we must find a way to deal with public relations. The other party deliberately distorts the truth. We can't just let it be. We must let the public hear our voice. Since we have found out that there is a mole who maliciously poisoned the patient, we should make it public. The public will definitely understand that this matter was framed by someone and has nothing to do with us," the King of Medicine said. Mu Hongyan pondered for a moment, but shook her head and refused. "No, this will only make people talk and be questioned. This matter happened in our territory. In any case, we can't absolve ourselves from the blame. Only by finding out who is behind the scenes can we really be cleared of suspicion." Mu Hongyan had a lot of experience in dealing with such matters. Since she said so, no one objected. The King of Medicine was concerned about the patient and said, "I'll go and see the patient's condition first." The King of Medicine left, leaving only Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan in the office. They looked at each other, and the atmosphere changed instantly. Mu Hongyan's queen-like demeanor disappeared. She took off the queen's mantle and became a mature and gentle woman again. Looking at the fatigue on her face, Tang Zheng painfully grabbed her hand. She leaned into his arms and felt his broad chest. "It's really been hard on you this time. You haven't rested when you came back and this happened again." Tang Zheng hugged her slender waist and leaned his chin on her shoulder. He smelled the faint feminine scent on her face and felt sweet in his heart. Tang Zheng's hot breath hit Mu Hongyan's earlobe when he spoke. Her whole body tensed up, but she quickly relaxed, like a drifting boat that found a quiet bay. She smiled sweetly and said, "This is my life. I've long been used to it." "You are my woman. Seeing you work so hard makes my heart ache," Tang Zheng said softly. This sentence undoubtedly hit the softest part of Mu Hongyan's heart. After so many years, no one had ever said such words to her. Even in the past, her strong woman character had already been deeply rooted in people's hearts. Even if she was so busy that her feet didn't touch the ground, no one would say that they felt sorry for her. They would only envy and praise her ability. There was a saying that one could only see the essence of a person when they loved her. She was a strong woman on the surface and had the queen-like demeanor, but she was still a woman in her bones. In Tang Zheng's eyes, no matter how many halos and identities she only had one identity, and that was a woman, his woman. Mu Hongyan's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. During this period of time, the bitterness and hard work were all worth it. This sentence was worth 10,000 words of praise, and it couldn't be bought with money. Seeing that she didn't make a sound, Tang Zheng looked down and saw that she was acting strangely. His heart moved and he turned her around to look at her face to face. Their eyes met, filled with tenderness. Mu Hongyan was like a volcano. The passion that had been accumulating for a long time instantly erupted as she took the initiative to offer her fragrant lips. Tang Zheng's head rippled as he tasted her fragrant kiss. He couldn't help but become intoxicated as he tightly hugged her body. He wanted nothing more than to rub her into his body and become one with her. Mu Hongyan's cheeks were red and her breath was like orchids. However, she didn't want to separate and took as much as she wanted. After a long time, their lips parted and the two pairs of eyes stared at each other. Thousands of words were contained in this gaze. There was no need to say anything, but they understood each other's feelings. Mu Hongyan felt that she had lived for more than 20 years in vain. Looking at Tang Zheng, she felt that life was so wonderful and wonderful. All the hardships in the past were for the sake of reaping the rewards of today's life. Perhaps this was fate. The opponent this time is very powerful. We have a lot of work to do. Mu Hongyan said softly. You can rest assured that no matter who it is, we will find them and make them pay a painful price. Tang Zheng said resolutely. Then do you have any guesses who did it? The other party's methods are very skillful and ruthless. It's not an ordinary person. I can't guess for the time being. Tang Zheng thought for a while and said. No matter who it is, if we work together, we will definitely be able to defeat these rascals. Mu Hongyan was full of confidence. She couldn't help but hold Tang Zheng's hand tightly. At this time, footsteps sounded outside the door. Tang Zheng released his hands and Mu Hongyan reluctantly left his embrace. The door opened and a person hurriedly said, Chief Mu, the leader of the Food and Drug Administration is here. It is said that they are here to investigate this matter. They came so quickly. Mu Hongyan raised her eyebrows and immediately returned to normal. I'll go take a look. I'll go with you. Tang Zheng walked out with her and saw that the hall on the first floor was very noisy. A group of people wearing white shirts and black trousers, looking like officials, swaggered in, pointing and ordering people around. The King of Medicine had already gone up to greet this group of officials. There was no doubt that the King of Medicine had face, but this time it didn't seem to work. These people didn't give face to the King of Medicine. Instead, they were aggressive and threatened that the investigation team would be stationed in the pharmaceutical factory to carry out a comprehensive and detailed investigation. The King of Medicine argued, but he was obviously not good at words and arguments. He was not as eloquent as the officials and was forced to retreat. Clack, clack, clack. A burst of crisp sound of high heels hitting the ground rang out. The two sides of the argument were immediately attracted by this crisp sound and turned their heads to look at each other. Mu Hongyan, who was the housekeeper, walked towards them. Everyone couldn't hide the amazement in their eyes. What's going on? Mu Hongyan regained her queen-like demeanor. She was cold and proud, making people feel like they were looking up to a mountain. President Mu. The person who came obviously had done the investigation and recognized Mu Hongyan. Your company has a serious medical accident, and a life has been lost. Of course, we have to investigate thoroughly. This accident was caused by the new drug you applied. Therefore, our investigation team must obtain all the rights to access your relevant information, as well as the development and manufacturing process of the new drug. No. The King of Medicine couldn't wait to stop them. The new drug was the result of months of labor by him and countless staff members. If it was completely disclosed to the investigation team, their success would be made public. There was no need to talk about confidentiality. The most important thing about a drug was the prescription. If it was made public, others could copy it. This was absolutely not allowed. The investigation team looked at the King of Medicine with displeasure. If the other party wasn't a leading figure in Xinglin, they would have been furious. What's wrong with this? If such a serious accident is not investigated thoroughly, how can we explain it to the public? The other party scolded sternly. Mu Hongyan was a smart person. Of course, she immediately understood the intentions of the investigation team. She couldn't help but look at them suspiciously. This investigation team was also very strange. Usually, the official reaction speed was not so fast. This time it was too strange. Chapter 1100. Since he had determined that the other party was abnormal, then it was even more impossible for him to release all sorts of data and prescriptions. Mu Hongyan argued, but the other party did not give up, and said sternly, "If you don't cooperate, then I'll seal you up." Tang Zheng's eyes flashed. He took a step forward and stood in front of Mu Hongyan. Since he had determined that someone was trying to frame him, these people were naturally accomplices, so he would not be courteous. Using a chicken feather as an arrow would work in other places, but not in Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng sneered and said disdainfully, "Let's see how you seal this place." "And who are you?" The other party stared at Tang Zheng suspiciously. Tang Zheng's reputation was illustrious, but to many people, he was still an unfamiliar face. For example, the few people in front of him who were showing off their might, they had not reached the level where they could know too much about Tang Zheng. Who I am is not important. If you know what's good for you, then get out of here. Go back and tell the person behind you that if you want to deal with me, then come at me openly. Playing such tricks is just child's play. Tang Zheng said straightforwardly. What are you talking about? I don't understand. You dare to speak such arrogant words and slander the country's public servants. Are you trying to rebel? Haha, if this big hat was placed on someone else's head, they might be afraid, but it has no effect on me. Scram. Tang Zheng shouted in a low voice, scaring the few of them so much that they staggered back. They looked at him in bewilderment, not knowing who he was. In the past, when they went to various enterprises, the enterprises would treat them like gods, but no one dared to go against them. This time, they saw a ghost. This young man was not afraid of them at all. Especially the aura emitted by the other party. It made their hearts tremble and they almost peed their pants. However, they had not completed their mission this time, so of course they could not escape with their tails between their legs. Their expressions turned cold, and with a gloomy face, they pointed at Tang Zheng and said, "You will pay for what you have done." Tang Zheng could not be bothered to waste his breath on them. He looked at the sorcerer tribe disciples beside him and said, "Throw them out." A few of the sorcerer tribe disciples grabbed the few of them, and before they could react, they walked out of the door with majestic strides. What are you doing? You are openly going against the government. You won't be able to bear the consequences. The other party finally reacted. He screamed and waved his hands in an attempt to break free, but he couldn't do anything about it. Seeing the group of people being carried out, the other people's faces changed. They looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. This handsome guy's temper was too explosive, and he was too bold. Is that okay? Mu Hongyan asked worriedly. Tang Zheng didn't care. Since the other party is playing tricks and not playing by the rules, I naturally won't play by the rules with them. Don't worry, I'll handle everything. Mu Hongyan nodded gently and felt relieved. She knew that although Tang Zheng seemed to be reckless, he was actually very meticulous. He must have his own plans. The king of medicine's cheeks flushed red and he said angrily, "This group of people is too abominable. I will report it to the higher-ups and find out what is going on." The king of medicine was not a stupid person. He had already realized that the people from the Food and Drug Administration must have been instructed by someone. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come so quickly. It didn't make sense. The king of medicine immediately called to inquire, but after a round of calls, he fell silent. "How is it?" Mu Hongyan asked. The king of medicine looked suspicious and said in a low voice, "This matter is very big. It is said that the higher-ups have given orders to punish them severely and set an example." "Example?" "Humph." Tang Zheng snorted. "Which leader gave the order?" The king of medicine looked gloomy. He used to think that he had a lot of influence in the upper circle. After all, he had treated many leaders. He didn't expect that at the critical moment, these leaders didn't care about their old friendship and instead gave him vague excuses. "I don't know which leader it is." Tang Zheng thought about it. The only leader he had ever offended was probably that person. Some time ago, he even threatened him face to face. Could it be that the real culprit behind the scenes was him? "You deal with the press conference first. I'll leave for a while." Tang Zheng's gaze inadvertently fell on the few people from the Food and Drug Administration who had been blasted out. He had an idea and said, "What are you going to do? Don't be impulsive." Mu Hongyan guessed a little and quickly advised. Tang Zheng smiled at her and said, "Don't worry, I know what to do." The people from the Food and Drug Administration got in the car and left dejectedly. Looking at the pharmaceutical factory from the rearview mirror, they had nowhere to vent their anger. "Director, what should we do?" someone asked. This director was the one who confronted Tang Zheng just now. He was the leader of this group of people. His eyes were red and he said in exasperation, "Don't be fooled by their arrogance now. They will cry in the future." "Yes, Director, we must not let them go. We have never suffered such a big grievance." The others echoed. The director's eyes flickered with uncertainty, unable to hide the sharpness in them. He was confident that this company was definitely finished. This was because this time, he had come under orders. He was not alone, but had a strong backing. This was not disclosed to the public, but when he thought of his backing, he felt proud and confident. "Humph, in the near future, I will make them kneel in front of us and beg for mercy, kowtow and admit their mistakes." The director vowed. The few of them returned to their residence. Just as the director sat down, the door opened with a click. A person swaggered in. The director hurriedly stood up, and the arrogance on his face disappeared. He bowed slightly to the other party and said, "Mr. Yamada, how is it? Did you get the prescription?" Yamada's eyes were high. He directly sat down and asked. The director's expression darkened as he resentfully said, "There was a problem. The other party didn't cooperate, so the investigation was stopped." "You mean you didn't get the prescription?" Yamada stood up again with an unfriendly expression. "Not yet." The director stammered. Seeing Yamada's expression become more and more unsightly, he quickly added, "But in the end, we will definitely get it." "Rice bucket." Yamada reprimanded without any trace of politeness. Although the director's face was red, he did not dare to refute. He lowered his head in shame. He usually acted arrogantly in front of others, but in front of Yamada, he did not have the confidence to do so. That was because he had taken a lot of benefits from Yamada. Of course, he couldn't refute him. Moreover, he vaguely knew that behind Yamada was the royal family of the island nation. This was not something he could provoke, so he could only swallow his anger. "We let you enter the pharmaceutical factory in the name of the investigation team so quickly because we wanted to get the prescription before the other party had time to react. Otherwise, we spent so much effort and planned for so long, but all our hard work would have gone to waste. Do you understand?" Yamada reprimanded unceasingly. The director's head was almost touching the ground. He said submissively, "Yes, I understand. This is all my fault. I will definitely think of a way to make up for it." "You have already attracted the other party's attention. How do you want to make up for it? Since the other party has already stopped you, they will definitely be prepared. Even if your investigation team successfully enters the factory, you will definitely not be able to find anything useful, let alone the prescription. Then what should we do?" The director did not know what to do. Yamada pondered for a moment and asked, "Who was stopping you today? Describe the situation at that time." The director did not know what this would do, but he still tried to recall the situation at that time and described it one by one. "You said that there was a very arrogant young man who stopped you?" Yamada raised his eyebrows and asked with a shocked expression. The director nodded blankly. "Yes, I don't know who this kid is." Mu Hongyan and King of Medicine seemed to listen to him. "This is simply nonsense." "Is he called Tang Zheng?" Yamada thought of something and asked with a frown. The director shook his head. "I don't know." "You don't know anything? What the hell are you doing?" Yamada roared in exasperation. The director trembled and did not dare to talk back. It must be Tang Zheng, as only he would dare to do such a thing. Only he would be able to make Mu Hongyan and the Medicine King listen to his orders. The director said decisively. "Humph, you are from an island nation, but you know quite a lot." A voice suddenly sounded in the room. Kazuaki Yamada was so scared that he trembled all over. He looked around as if he had seen a ghost. The director thought that he was hallucinating. There was clearly no third person in the room. How could there be a voice? Yamada was obviously more knowledgeable. His whole body tensed up and he was ready to attack. He looked around and asked cautiously, "Where are you?" "I am right in front of you. Can't you see me?" The voice sounded again. Yamada only felt a blur in front of his eyes. Sure enough, a person appeared in front of him. He did not think and punched at the person, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. This punch did not have any effect at all. He turned pale with horror and stared at the person in front of him. Sure enough, he was not much different from the rumors. "You are Tang Zheng?" Tang Zheng looked at the other party coldly. Even in his dreams, he would never have thought that the mastermind behind this matter would actually be the island country. The island country would actually painstakingly set up this trap for his prescription. Obviously, the island nation must have heard some news, so they wanted to get their hands on the prescription. This batch of new drugs would change the current medical structure. It would be an epic-making advancement. It was no wonder that the island nation had deliberately planned all of this. The most abhorrent thing was that the people in the Food and Drug Administration were in cahoots with the island nation. They were simply traitors. Therefore, he looked at the director with increasingly cold eyes without any emotion. The director was not frightened by this gaze. Instead, as if he had found a backer, he shouted, "Mr. Yamada, this is the kid who stopped us. You have to teach him a lesson and let him know how powerful we are." Yamada did not answer because his nerves were completely tense. He did not allow the slightest distraction. Chapter 1101. Seeing that Yamada was indifferent, the director's face turned red and he anxiously urged, "Mr. Yamada, don't just stand there. Hurry up and teach him a lesson." "Shut up!" Yamada yelled impatiently at him. The director immediately became like a little lamb. He shrunk his neck as if he had been wronged and did not dare to make any noise. Tang Zheng looked at him coldly and glanced at the director. The director's eyes turned red as he glared at Tang Zheng. However, he did not dare to act rashly. "Island Nation man, who is the one behind you? Is it the royal family? Or is it someone else?" Tang Zheng asked preemptively. Yamada's body was as stiff as a wooden stick. He took a deep breath and said, "I am me. Heng Heng, even though I originally looked down on you, but with your qualifications, you do not have the qualifications to contend against me. Just who is behind you, tell me the truth, and I can let you die a little faster." Tang Zheng said without any trace of politeness. He never thought of letting him go. Yamada was from the island nation, and he was the one who asked for it. How could he be merciful? When the director heard this, his body trembled and he laughed as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He pointed at Tang Zheng and said, "Haha, you are crazy. What right do you have to say such words? Do you know who Mr. Yamada is?" "Who is he?" "He is." The director was proud and was about to show off. Suddenly, the blade flashed and the director's eyes widened. He could not help but look at Yamada. You. He could not say a word. Blood spurted out from between his fingers and splattered all over the ground. Boom. The director fell to the ground and died with his eyes wide open. He probably did not understand why Yamada would kill him. It was because Yamada wanted to keep his secret. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed. He did not expect Yamada to be so ruthless. Although the director deserved to die, he was still from the Wuxia. How could he not be angry when he died in the hands of someone from the island nation? You are courting death. He reached out with his big hand, directly grabbing towards the director's neck. However, a blade light lit up again, but it was not aimed at Tang Zheng, but at Yamada's own neck. Blood flew out, and a sinister smile appeared on Yamada's face, as if he was mocking Tang Zheng. Another one who is not afraid of death. Tang Zheng's hair stood on end. Do you think I can't do anything? Yamada's breath. Tang Zheng grabbed his head and used the soul-searching technique. A person's figure immediately appeared in his mind. Junko. Tang Zheng immediately recognized this person. Junko was the direct disciple of the imperial teacher of the island. After the imperial teacher fell, she submitted to the 100 Transformations Star-Lord. She also appeared in the last imperial city battle. However, later on, she took the opportunity to escape and saved her little life. He did not expect her to come back and target the pharmaceutical factory, trying to take away the prescription. The island nation had 100 faces. Although he was very powerful in combat, he was not very proficient in pharmacology and elixir techniques. Moreover, they did not have a master like the king of medicine. Therefore, they did not have any new medicine. They must have heard something about it, so they wanted to get their hands on this batch of new medicine. Tang Zheng thought for a while and understood the reason and the key point. However, he did not get any more information from Yamada's mind. Yamada was completely dead, and the soul-searching technique could not find anything. However, this was enough. Since Junko was involved, then this matter must have something to do with 100 Change Star-Lord. Tian Chanzi's analysis was right. 100 faces had not given up. He was still eyeing them covetously. However, he had sunk to the bottom of the water and was hiding. If that was the case, could it be that the 100 Faces Star-Lord was in cahoots with Ji Wuxiang? He shook his head and decided not to think about it for the time being. Looking at the two people whose throats had been slit, he frowned. There was no doubt that the mole was killed by Yamada. He was worried that the secret would be leaked. However, Yamada did not expect that even suicide could not protect all the information. However, although he was sure that this matter was related to 100 Faces, where could he find him? Was he hiding in some dark corner, quietly watching all of this? When he returned to the pharmaceutical factory, he was still thinking about this question. The press conference had already been held, and Mu Hongyan's public relations work had also begun. When night fell, the direction of the internet gradually changed. They did not blindly blame the pharmaceutical factory. Instead, because of the exposure of this incident, some information about the new medicine began to spread. When people heard about the miraculous effects of this new medicine, they were all amazed. Of course, it was inevitable that they were skeptical about the miraculous effects of the new medicine. That day, many people called the pharmaceutical factory to inquire. The phone was almost blown up. In the end, the pharmaceutical factory did not respond directly, but at the same time, the results of the investigation were reported to the higher-ups. Of course, the inside story was not disclosed to the public to avoid criticism. The matter did not end there. The death of the director was exposed, and it seemed to have attracted the anger of the higher-ups. A new investigation team arrived at the pharmaceutical factory that night. Originally, Tang Zheng wanted to stop them. However, Mu Hongyan stopped him. If they stopped them once, they would definitely come a second time. It was impossible to stop them from coming a third time. This would only lead to the escalation of the conflict. It was better to let them investigate openly. As for the confidential information, they had already hidden it in the afternoon. The investigation team could not find anything useful. This way they could ease the conflict, so why not? In the end, Tang Zheng was persuaded by Mu Hongyan and did not stop the investigation team. As for the death of the director and Yamada, no one came to investigate. There was no evidence, so they could not pin it on Tang Zheng. Moreover, the death of the director and a person from an island nation was intriguing. Naturally, they did not dare to make a big deal out of it. In the middle of the night, Mu Hongyan finished dealing with the investigation team and the pharmaceutical factory. She returned to the hotel. Tang Zheng stayed by her side the whole time. He watched as she dealt with all kinds of troublesome matters with great ease. He could not help but admire her. In terms of cultivation, he was much better than Mu Hongyan. However, in these professional matters, Mu Hongyan was much better than him. At the door of the room, Mu Hongyan looked at Tang Zheng and said, "Stay with me for a while." Tang Zheng nodded and entered the room with her. Mu Hongyan rubbed her temples. It was hard to hide her exhaustion. She did not have the aura of a queen from before. "I'll lie down. I'll give you a massage," Tang Zheng said softly. Mu Hongyan lay down on the sofa. Her head rested on Tang Zheng's thigh. Her slender and exquisite body was completely displayed in front of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng had no distracting thoughts in his mind as his hands landed on her temples. His 2 thumbs gently pressed, and a trace of true qi flowed along the surface of her skin. A comfortable feeling gradually spread from the outside to the inside, gradually invading her entire body. Tang Zheng's hands slid down and fell on her shoulders. Although there was a layer of clothes, he could still feel the roundness of her shoulders. Tang Zheng's strength was just right. Mu Hongyan could not help but close her eyes. Her eyebrows relaxed and she looked very satisfied. "Have you learned how to massage? Your technique is so good. It's even better than those professional masseuses." Mu Hongyan's lips curled into a smile as she softly asked. "I learned it all by myself," Tang Zheng said with a smile. Mu Hongyan's eyes opened a slit. She rolled her eyes at him and said, "You only know how to boast. Whether I'm boasting or not, aren't you experiencing it yourself?" "It's just as..." Mu Hongyan's eyes flashed with a mischievous smile as she deliberately said, "You dare to say my technique is just oh. See how I'll take care of you." Tang Zheng's playful heart rose as he grabbed her chest. Mu Hongyan tenderly cried out as her body involuntarily straightened. Her eyes widened as she asked, "What are you doing? How's my technique?" Tang Zheng deliberately asked. Mu Hongyan bit her lips and said, "Sus." Tang Zheng cried out and said, "You still dare to say sus? It seems like I'll have to let you have a taste of my true technique." His hands began to move. They were no longer limited to a certain area. His hands moved up and down. Mu Hongyan immediately tenderly cried out. Her breath was like orchids, but she was not willing to admit defeat. She flirtatiously said, "You're just a restless and disobedient monkey. If I'm a monkey, then you're a female monkey." Tang Zheng went straight to the point as his big hand burrowed into her clothes. Mu Hongyan's cheeks were flushed red as if she was drunk. She buried her head in Tang Zheng's arms and shyly said, "Nonsense, I'm not a female monkey. If you say I'm a monkey, then you're a female monkey. If you're a monkey, I'm not a female monkey." "Are you?" "Ah!" Mu Hongyan cried out in surprise. Her eyes were about to drip water as she bit her lips to resist the waves of strange feelings coming from her body. She wanted to clench her teeth and deny it, but she could not resist Tang Zheng's various methods. She could only submit and beg for mercy. "I am." "Ha ha." Tang Zheng laughed. "And a beautiful female monkey." "Don't. I want to take a shower first," Mu Hongyan exclaimed. "Let's take a shower together." Tang Zheng picked her up. "I want to see if you've lost weight after being in Europe for so long." "I've gained weight." "Where are you gaining weight?" "Here." "It's good that you're gaining weight here." Tang Zheng smiled mischievously. Mu Hongyan was so embarrassed that she could not show her face. However, she was picked up by Tang Zheng and had nowhere to run. After struggling a few times, she let him do whatever he wanted. Not long after, the sound of water splashing could be heard in the bathroom. There were also strange sounds mixed in. The 2 monkeys were fighting to their heart's content. They had to decide a winner. Later, the battlefield moved from the bathroom to the sofa, the big bed, and the window. Their fierce battle was left in every corner. Chapter 1102. The next day, the 2 of them felt refreshed. Mu Hongyan's pink face was like a flower that had been nourished. She became more beautiful and dazzling, attracting even more people's attention. In the pharmaceutical factory, the investigation team did not rest for the entire night. They had been reviewing all kinds of information and investigating all kinds of data. They had put in a lot of effort and were determined to find out the truth. Looking at the busy crowd, Tang Zheng's heart moved. These people won't leave for a while. We can't just wait like this. We have to take the initiative. The King of Medicine and Mu Hongyan looked at him curiously and asked, how do we take the initiative? Since we already know that this matter is related to the island nation, I'll go find them if they don't come out. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a bright light. The island nation's people are hiding. Wuxia is so big. It's too easy to hide a few. How are we going to find them? Mu Hongyan asked doubtfully. Tang Zheng's mouth showed a trace of an evil smile. They can come to Wuxia. Of course, I can also visit the island nation. They can't hide even if they want to. What? You want to go to the island nation? It's too dangerous. That's a country. How can you be their opponent with your own strength? Besides, there's also the celestial ruler. His cultivation is higher than yours. If you go, you'll be like a sheep in a tiger's mouth. Absolutely not. Mu Hongyan firmly refused. The King of Medicine also hurriedly nodded and agreed with Mu Hongyan's words. Tang Zheng smiled calmly. Don't worry. According to Tian Chanzi's analysis, the celestial ruler is very likely to be hiding in Wuxia. He's not in the island nation. That won't do either. That's an entire country we're talking about, not just a few people or a few dozen people. Mu Hongyan still insisted. Tang Zheng's eyes became gentle. He looked at her affectionately and took the initiative to hold her hand. The King of Medicine was still next to them. Mu Hongyan's face turned red. She tried to break free, but found that Tang Zheng's hand was like a vice, and she couldn't break free at all. Mu Hongyan was helpless. She rolled her eyes at him and could only let it be. The King of Medicine looked at this scene in surprise. It was as if he had discovered a new world. He did not realize that these two people had such a relationship. Cough cough. He coughed awkwardly and said, Master, I'll go check on the investigation team first. After that, without even turning his head, he slipped away and left. Mu Hongyan's cheeks became redder, like the sunset on the horizon. She said bitterly, It's all because of you. You're so bold. How can I face the King of Medicine in the future? She and the King of Medicine had known each other for a long time. Now that she exposed her relationship with Tang Zheng, it was naturally very awkward. Tang Zheng shrugged. Others will find out sooner or later. What's there to be afraid of? It's not a shameful thing. Moreover, the King of Medicine is not an outsider. He won't do anything to others. Don't worry. What was done could not be undone. Mu Hongyan was helpless, but there was a trace of sweetness in her heart. Regarding the relationship between the two of them, Tang Zheng did not try to hide or hide. This was a form of respect for her. Otherwise, if he acted like a thief, then she would have a knot in her heart. Mu Hongyan took a deep breath and calmed down a little. She did not give up and said, You really shouldn't go. It's too dangerous. Tang Zheng gently squeezed her hand and said with a faint smile, You really don't have to worry. Even if I can't beat him, I'll run away. Don't you think I don't have the ability to run away? You're really a monkey that doesn't let people worry. Looking at his firm eyes, Mu Hongyan knew that it was useless to persuade him. She pinched him fiercely and said coquettishly. Tang Zheng chuckled and said, When I come back, I'll show you how powerful this monkey is. Mu Hongyan could not help but recall the ridiculous thing last night. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Last night, the two of them unlocked a lot of new positions. It was very embarrassing. However, she could not resist this monkey's coaxing and pestering. In the end, she could only fulfill his wish. Mwah! Suddenly, Mu Hongyan's face was kissed. She turned pale with fright. She looked around and exclaimed, What are you doing? Don't worry, no one saw. Tang Zheng said with a sly smile. Mu Hongyan was helpless. She reluctantly said, Monkey, go and come back quickly. I'll wait for you to come back. Looking at her affectionate appearance, Tang Zheng shook his head. He quickly suppressed his restless thoughts. He waved his hand and turned to leave. Island Nation was not far from Wuxia. It was only 2 to 3 hours by plane. Of course, he would not take the plane. Instead, he directly flew on his sword. His speed was not slower than a plane. He shuttled through the clouds and arrived at the airspace of the island nation. Whoosh! Suddenly, a whistling sound came from above. A huge gust of wind swept over. The sun in the sky was blocked by a huge thing. He slightly narrowed his eyes. He had already guessed what was going on.
Because the loud roar of the engine made everything clear.
Looking up, it was indeed a plane. It was a fighter jet. It swooped down from the sky and attacked directly. However, he did not know that the island nation was in chaos. Just now, the fighter jet detected a person flying high in the sky like an eagle. His speed was extremely fast. When this information was passed back, the military was naturally in disbelief. They immediately ordered an interception. However, discussions and analysis were in full swing. Some people thought that this was Wuxia's mecha weapon. After all, Wuxia's mecha was no longer a secret. Island Nation had already started to develop mecha. However, a stable source of energy had always been a big problem. They did not have demon beast cores, so naturally, they could not drive mecha. However, this judgment was immediately rejected. Mecha were giants. It was impossible for them to shrink to the size of an ordinary person in such a short time. Since it was not a mecha, then what could it be? Could it really be a person? Could it be that they saw a ghost? The fighter jet received the order and immediately began to intercept. When it swooped close to Tang Zheng, the pilot clearly saw that it was a living person. Moreover, he was not wearing any high-tech equipment. He was just wearing ordinary clothes. How was this possible? At such a height, the air was already very thin. How could a person survive? Moreover, how could a person fly? It was not like he was a bird. The pilot immediately discovered the War Soul sword under Tang Zheng's feet. Could it be that this sword was a flying device? The pilot's brain could not analyze all of this. Only by intercepting him could he solve all of this mystery. The pilot first shouted in the island nation's language, announcing that he had entered the island nation's airspace. Please stop this invasion immediately and follow him to land. Seeing that the other party did not respond, he immediately shouted in Wuxia's language. This time, the other party finally reacted. He turned his head and looked at him. The pilot could clearly feel the cold killing intent in the other party's eyes. The pilot's heart turned cold. He quickly said, "If you don't listen to orders, I will shoot you down." Annoying fly. Tang Zheng frowned and waved his hand impatiently. A strong wind whistled and directly hit the wing of the plane. Boom! The fighter jet seemed to have been hit by a huge airflow and kept shaking. It almost lost control. The pilot was so scared that he cried out. Fortunately, he was an experienced pilot. Otherwise he would have died. He was shocked, but also angered. He said, "Baka, I will shoot you down." Whiz! A missile locked onto Tang Zheng and flew out, heading straight for Tang Zheng. "Hey, you still want to give me a missile? I'll play with you." Tang Zheng's mouth revealed a sinister smile. With a thought, the War Soul sword immediately changed direction, drawing a big circle in the air and flying towards the fighter jet. The missile firmly locked onto Tang Zheng. Even if he changed direction, the missile would still chase after him. It also turned a circle and flew back. The pilot stared blankly as Tang Zheng flew towards him. He was shocked and hurriedly pulled up the plane in an attempt to avoid Tang Zheng. However, how could Tang Zheng let him do as he wished? He directly stuck to the belly of the plane. No matter what the pilot did to dodge, it was useless. He could only watch as the missile whistled towards him. Ah no! The pilot let out a hysterical scream. Boom! The huge explosion drowned out his screams. The plane turned into a ball of flames and quickly fell into the sea below. Tang Zheng had already left the plane a few seconds before the missile hit it. He stood at the side and watched the show unscathed. Hee hee, you want to stop me with this ability? As soon as he finished speaking, there was another rumbling sound. Another fighter jet flew out from the clouds. There's actually more than one plane. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed as he stared at the fighter jet. This time, the other party did not shout, but attacked without saying anything. So. The three missiles whistled through the air, leaving trails of flames behind them. Tang Zheng didn't try to escape. Instead, he stopped in midair and let the missile fly over as if he was scared silly. The pilot had a smug look on his face as he began to clamor. Tang Zheng slowly took out the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow, knocked the arrow and aimed it at the missile. Wang! He loosened his fingers, and the bowstring trembled. The shooting sun arrow left the bowstring and hit a missile, exploding with a loud bang. The scorching heat wave seemed to evaporate the air, and even the clouds not far away were torn apart. The shooting sun arrow flew out of the flames and flew towards the second missile.
With a loud explosion, the second missile also turned into a ball of flames, and then the third missile.
Without any fancy moves, the 3 missiles exploded one after another, and all the attacks were nullified. The pilot stared at the scene in bewilderment. With his brain, he could not understand how an arrow could have such power.
Ah!
Suddenly, the pilot shouted, because the shooting sun arrow was flying towards him again. He piloted the fighter jet, hurriedly dodging and flipping non-stop. However, all of this was futile as the shooting sun arrow was connected to Tang Zheng's mind and could be controlled like an arm. So with a flash of sword light, the shooting sun arrow shot into the cockpit, directly piercing through the pilot's chest, and then came out from the belly of the fighter jet and returned to Tang Zheng's hand. The fighter jet that had lost its pilot's control was like a meteorite. It rapidly fell from the sky and into the sea, breaking into pieces and sinking into the sea. Chapter 1103. 2 fighter jets fell to prevent more fighter jets from attacking. Tang Zheng lowered his altitude and flew at a low altitude. He quickly swept across the sea and landed on land. As for the chaos on the island, he did not care. Let them make wild guesses. He was no stranger to the island nation. His trip to the east this time was to lure the snake out of its hole. Once the 100 Faces Star-Lord knew that he was stirring up trouble in the island nation, he would definitely not be able to continue hiding. After all, the island nation was his base camp. If the island nation was completely destroyed, it would not be good for the 100 Faces Star-Lord. His target was very clear. He was going for the Emperor. Only the Emperor could affect the 100 Faces Star-Lord. As for what he told Mu Hongyan that he would not face the 100 Faces Star-Lord head-on, it was not true. The island nation was not far from Wuxia. Once the 100 Faces Star-Lord received the news, he might come to help. Then, the 2 sides would definitely meet. The 100 Faces Star-Lord was stronger than him, but Tang Zheng was not a dead end. The last time the Shura escaped from his control, it gave him an idea. The Shura was a huge unstable factor, but this was for others. He could rely on the Xitigaba Sutra to suppress him. So, once he was really in a life-and-death situation, he could completely release the Shura. This was the island nation, not Wuxia. He did not need to worry about causing too much damage or influence. He went to the Kokyo with ease. There were many palaces. The destroyed palaces had been rebuilt, and they were even more magnificent. He used his illusion technique and easily deceived the eyes of the layers of guards. Now, the security of the imperial palace was even tighter, as if it was an iron bucket. But to Tang Zheng, it was as if he had entered a no-man's land. He strolled leisurely, as if he was strolling in his own backyard. He walked past the palaces one by one, looking for the emperor. Suddenly, his gaze turned cold. He saw that the palace in the deepest part of the Kokyo was very heavily guarded. It was obviously not on the same level as the other places. His eyes lit up. This must be the emperor's residence. A gust of wind blew past. The guards looked around but didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Then they stood in place like javelins, completely unaware that a person had sneaked into the palace. In the main hall, there was a person sitting in the main hall. The others stood below and respectfully reported to him. Looking at the people in the hall from afar, Tang Zheng narrowed his eyes slightly. The emperor was not an outsider, but an acquaintance. The original emperor was already dead, and the new emperor was the younger brother of the old emperor. His name was Hirohito. Back then, he had met Tang Zheng in the northeast sinkhole. He was the leader of the ninjas. Hirohito had fallen into the hands of the government. They interrogated him for a long time, but they couldn't pry open his mouth. In the end, they exchanged benefits with the island nation and released Hirohito back to his country. After Hirohito came to power, there was a drastic change in the policy towards China. The relationship between the 2 countries fell into deep water and fell to the freezing point. The hostility between the 2 countries intensified. However, the island nation could not compete with Wuxia in terms of military power or national strength. No matter how angry they were, they could only hold it in. Looking at Hirohito from afar, Tang Zheng felt that his aura had undergone an earth-shattering change compared to before.
Back then, he was already a martial scholar, and now it seemed that he had broken through to the martial king realm. Without a doubt, this rapid improvement was the work of the 100 Faces Star-Lord. The emperor had the cultivation of the martial king realm, so his authority was naturally great. Ordinary people did not dare to resist him. His strength had completely surpassed the emperor's. In such a small country, the general public was almost obedient to his orders. Although it had only been a short time, he had already eliminated dissidents and integrated his strength. Those who followed him would prosper, and those who opposed him would die. Hirohito's only wish was to fulfill the long-cherished wish of his ancestors. With an army pressing down on the border, he would invade Wuxia again and occupy that vast land. The officials respectfully listened to his teachings. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They could only keep talking and bowing their heads. Seeing this scene, Tang Zheng frowned. He had a whole new level of respect for Hirohito. He had thought that Hirohito was just a martial artist. He didn't expect him to be able to govern the country so well. This was a huge threat. If he wasn't eliminated, then he would definitely be a huge threat to Wuxia in the future. As for the huge impact of assassinating the emperor, he didn't care at all. It wasn't like he had never done such a thing before. The first time was unfamiliar. The second time was familiar. Step by step, he walked towards Hirohito. The officials and guards did not notice him at all. He arrived in front of Hirohito as if he was in an uninhabited land, only 3 meters away from him. Suddenly, Hirohito turned his head and stared in the direction of Tang Zheng. His eyes emitted a terrifying light as he roared, "Who is it?" Like a clap of thunder, this loud roar woke everyone up. The surrounding guards rushed over like tigers, leopards, and wolves. Although they couldn't see anything, Hirohito's gaze had already pointed in the direction. These guards were well trained and didn't slack off because they couldn't see anyone. They were all ninjas and understood that it wasn't impossible to be invisible. After all, there was such a method in ninjutsu. However, this person was invisible in front of everyone and escaped from almost everyone's sight. This ability was really extraordinary. The person had arrived, but the hidden weapons had already arrived. Swish, swish, swish. After a series of air-breaking sounds, the hidden weapons flew towards the place where Tang Zheng was standing from all directions. Clang, clang, clang. Sparks flew in all directions and the sound of metal colliding rang out. Everyone began to shout. There was actually someone here. Assassin! Someone loudly shouted. The guards outside the palace couldn't wait to break through the door and attack. Tang Zheng couldn't understand the island nation's language, but this didn't hinder his actions. With a thought, he removed the illusion and exposed himself to everyone's eyes. "It's you!" Hirohito roared in surprise. His eyes were as big as a cow's as he stared at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's lips curled up and said, "It's me. Long time no see. I handed you over to the government and in the end I actually let you return to your country. This is my mistake. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have let you live." Hirohito could speak Wuxia language so he understood Tang Zheng's meaning. He couldn't help but fly into a rage. He suddenly slapped the throne and shouted himself hoarse. "You caused such a big trouble in the island nation and you still dare to come here. This time you will definitely not be able to return. Do you have the ability?" Tang Zheng jokingly asked. Hirohito's strength had greatly increased and he had reached the martial king realm. His confidence had greatly increased and he almost believed that besides the 100 Star-Lord, he was the king of the heavens. So when he saw Tang Zheng, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he became restless and decided to kill Tang Zheng in the main hall. "Humph! This is my Kokyo. Everyone here is my people. You won't be able to escape even if you have wings. Do you think you still have a chance to live?" Hirohito loudly reprimanded. Tang Zheng shrugged and said, "All right, since you're so confident, I'll let you experience what it means to be full of ambition and show that you're skinny." Tang Zheng's eyes turned cold. His killing intent surged as he strolled towards the numerous guards. "Baka, kill him!" Hirohito roared. "Ah!" The bodyguards roared and brandished their katanas. They surged toward Tang Zheng like a tide. It was as if a monstrous wave was crashing toward Tang Zheng. Heaven flying immortal. Tang Zheng let out a low roar. The battle soul transformed into a dazzling sword light and flew into the crowd. In an instant, The roaring stopped abruptly, as if someone had grabbed their throats. Blood splattered everywhere, and the sound of people falling to the ground rose and fell one after another. In the blink of an eye, a large number of guards fell to the ground. Blood flowed and dyed the ground red. Blood flowed like a river. Tang Zheng's eyes were filled with killing intent. He did not show any mercy. He controlled his sword to kill, as if he was a god of death. When the others saw this scene, they were stunned. Some of the officials were so scared that they peed their pants and sat on the ground. Their entire bodies were sore and weak. They could no longer get up. Their cheeks were as white as a sheet of paper. Hirohito subconsciously grabbed onto his throne, his eyelids twitching. It seemed to be different from what he had imagined. Moreover, it was extremely different. However, he did not plan to admit defeat. He suddenly stood up, his hair and beard fluttering. He was not angry, but his clothes moved without the wind. With a flash of his feet, he tried to attack Tang Zheng. However, a few officials who still had a trace of strength hurriedly hugged him and begged, "Your Majesty, please leave quickly. This person is too strong. If he kills all the guards, then he will deal with you." "Do you think I'm afraid of him? I want to fight with him for 300 rounds and let him know how powerful I am. I want him to be a ghost under my blade," Hirohito said solemnly. The officials were in tears and snot. Their hearts were about to jump out of their throats as they continued to plead, "No, Your Majesty, this person is too powerful. We just received news that 2 of our fighter jets were shot down by one person in the air. I'm afraid it was done by him. He is no longer human. He can fly." Flying in the air? Hirohito was shocked. He had seen the 100 Faces Star-Lord use this magical technique. At that time he was shocked. However, he did not expect that Tang Zheng would also know this technique. Therefore, he subconsciously stopped and looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. The officials did not know what flying in the air was, but they desperately hugged him. Hirohito's expression kept changing. He watched as the guards became fewer and fewer. If he delayed any longer, then Tang Zheng might really have the strength to deal with him. Tang Zheng even knew how to fly in the air. Then he might not be his opponent. Thinking about this, he was angry and helpless. Back then, he was not a match for Tang Zheng in the sky pit. Now, in his own palace, he actually had to flee. This was simply a great humiliation. There was probably no other emperor who was as sullen as him. However, when he thought of the previous emperor who died, his heart turned cold. He quickly calmed down. He was not an idiot and would not really do something that would lead to his own death. Since he knew that he was not a match for him, then the best plan was to escape. It was more important to protect his life first. "All right, then I'll go first. You guys stay behind. You must delay him." After the emperor finished speaking, he rushed out of the side door without looking back. He ran away so fast that only an afterimage was left behind. The officials stared blankly at his back. This change was too fast. Why didn't he bring them along to escape? Chapter 1104. Tang Zheng suddenly turned his head, and discovered that the heavenly emperor Hirohito had already left. His eyelids twitched and he snorted, "You want to escape just like that?" He had originally thought that since the other party was the heavenly emperor, he would still have some courage to fight back. He never thought that he would be so timid, not even having the courage to fight, and had already fled in panic. "These eyesores still want to continue pestering me? Go to hell." Tang Zheng's eyes burst out with a terrifying light. It was breathtaking. The War Soul sword flew out one after another of dazzling sword flowers, scattering into the crowd. Puff, puff, puff. A series of sharp sounds of swords slicing through skin rang out one after another, as if they were playing a beautiful tune. However, this was a tune that could take one's life. The guards in front of him were swept away. Tang Zheng swaggered through the crowd and chased out of the palace. Outside the palace was a huge plaza with a wide field of vision. Tang Zheng immediately locked onto Hirohito, who had already escaped far away, and with a leap, he was about to chase after him. On the contrary, countless people rushed out from all directions of the plaza and swarmed towards Tang Zheng. They were like ants, densely packed, causing one's hair to stand on end. However, Tang Zheng was not an elephant. No matter how many ants there were, they would not be able to nibble at him, because he did not give them a chance. War Soul Sword. Tang Zhang bellowed. The War Soul Sword flew into the air, riding on the sword, directly flying over the crowd. The ant-like guards stared blankly at this scene, their eyes filled with shock and despair. What was the use of having more people on their side? There was no place for them to use their skills. Hirohito, where do you think you're going? Hearing this voice, Hirohito was so scared that his liver and gallbladder trembled. He subconsciously turned his head and saw that Tang Zhang was only a few meters away from him. He sighed in his heart, knowing that there was nowhere to run. With a tap of his foot, the blue stone tiles on the ground shattered. He stopped in his tracks and abruptly turned around. Without saying a word, a string of cold light flew out from his hand and shot towards Tang Zhang. Tang Zhang's pupils shrank. The attack this time was not as soft as the other guards. It was as if they had not eaten. Hirohito was a martial king. If he was not careful, he would be at a disadvantage. He hurriedly brought out his holy armor shield. Dang, dang, dang. Those cold lights were like tickles to him, not leaving a single mark on his holy armor shield. Tang Zhang looked down at Hirohito mockingly and said, "What other tricks do you have? Use them all." Hirohito gritted his teeth. His eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. He roared, "Baka, I'm going to tear you into pieces." Really? Since you have this kind of determination, it is impolite not to reciprocate. I promise you, I will also tear your corpse into 10,000 pieces. You should be the first heavenly emperor to die like this, and your name will go down in history. You should be happy. Tang Zhang said sarcastically without holding back. Hirohito was like an active volcano. With a glare, he completely erupted. He opened his mouth wide and let out a roar that seemed to come from the abyss. Kill! Tang Zhang's expression was cold as ice. He stepped on the air and descended from the sky. His battle spirit quickly slashed out. The overflowing sword chi caused the ground to crack like a spider web. Hirohito was at the center of the sword chi. He felt as if his entire body was enveloped by the sword chi. It was as if he was being cut by 1,000 blades. He hurriedly circulated his energy to resist the pain. At the same time, a cold light flashed in his hand, and a katana, which seemed to have been taken out of a 10,000-year-old glacier, appeared in his hand. This cold air was the murderous aura condensed from killing countless people. Whoosh! With a slash of the blade, a hole was cut open in the sword chi. Hirohito charged forward, his beard and hair fluttering. He was incomparably berserk, and with a hysterical roar, he closed the distance between him and Tang Zhang. Clang! The sword and saber clashed, and the shockwave spread out in all directions. The guards who had gathered were thrown off their horses and screamed miserably. Many of them died in the shockwave. In the battle between the martial king and the Yuanying realm, ordinary warriors and cultivators could not interfere at all. If they insisted on getting involved, they would instead become sacrificial lambs. This group of guards had become sacrificial lambs. However, the aftermath of this confrontation was not over. When the shockwave produced by the collision of the sword and saber spread out, everyone saw a scene. Countless skeletons accompanied the shockwave and surged in all directions like a tide. Skeleton! Tang Zhang's gaze turned cold, and he was slightly surprised. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been scared witless by this scene. In a battle between experts, a moment of absent-mindedness was enough to be fatal. However, Tang Zhang had seen the resurrection of the giant's bones in the prehistoric heavenly tomb, and he had also been to the ghost realm. How could he be frightened by this scene? The heavenly emperor Hirohito did not know about this, and thought that his attack had worked. His figure flashed, and like a blade cutting through water, the katana slashed towards Tang Zhang's neck. The cold aura of the blade caused people to tremble. However, Tang Zhang did not feel much, the corner of his eyes slightly raised, his wrist slightly shook, and the War Soul sword rose from the bottom. Puff! A long line of blood spurted out from his chest and abdomen. The muscles on his face were almost twisted together as he bared his teeth, like a ferocious ghost with a green face. You! How is this possible? Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that Tang Zhang would not be affected at all. His katana was an ancient blade, one that was even more ancient than the demon blade Muramasa. It was the masterpiece of an ancient refining master, and after that, it was passed down for thousands of years, the most famous of which was in the hands of a famous tyrant. He soaked this blade in blood every day, and used it to cut off hundreds and thousands of heads, gathering hundreds and thousands of vengeful spirits.
One could imagine how evil it was. Finally, when using this blade to attack, it could cause the enemy to hallucinate, greatly increasing the effect of the attack. It was an absolute weapon that could kill in one strike. Hirohito had also experimented many times, and was very clear about this effect, so he chose it as his own blade. It was a pity that this tried and tested weapon did not have much effect on Tang Zheng. On the contrary, Tang Zheng took advantage of the situation and counterattacked, almost cutting open Hirohito's stomach. It was only a hair's breadth away. Hirohito secretly thought that he was lucky, but he was also scared and broke out in a cold sweat. He did not know that this was Tang Zheng deliberately showing mercy, because he did not want to kill Hirohito immediately. Hirohito was just a bait, and could be easily killed at any time.
Capturing him and using him to lure the snake out of its hole, the key was to catch the big fish, 100 Transformation Star-Lord.
Hirohito clenched his teeth and quickly retreated, trying to avoid Tang Zheng's second round of attacks. But Tang Zheng did not let him do as he wished. With a wave of his long sword, the skeleton phantom disappeared, and his big hand reached out, directly grabbing Hirohito's neck.
Escape!
Hirohito roared, and unexpectedly used the escape technique of ninjutsu. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule. He was no stranger to ninjutsu, and said, "Playing this kind of little trick in front of me, you are really showing off in front of an expert. Show yourself."
With a roar, the War Soul sword slashed towards the void, causing the air to tremble, and a figure appeared.
Hirohito was in a sorry state as he looked at Tang Zheng in shock. He did not expect that his country's ninjutsu, which had been passed down for so many years, would not be of any use.
"Come here."
With a thought, Tang Zheng used the swallowing the sky technique. A small black hole appeared in his palm, and a huge suction force immediately locked onto Hirohito.
Hirohito was shocked. "What are you doing?" Compared to the last time he fought with Tang Zheng, this time he was in a very sorry state.
He did not even have the strength to fight back. How did the other party cultivate?
He originally thought that with the help of 100 Transformation Star-Lord, his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds, and could be said to have reached the limit.
But after experiencing this battle, he realized that he was a frog at the bottom of a well. Hirohito was completely afraid. "Obediently surrender. Even if you flip the sky, you won't be able to escape from my 5-finger mountain," Tang Zheng said in disdain. His 5 fingers closed together, and the suction force of the black hole increased greatly. With a "so" sound, Hirohito was sucked into Tang Zheng's hand, and his neck was immediately grabbed by Tang Zheng's big hand. The other guards looked at each other as if they had seen a ghost. They shouted, but they were afraid of breaking the vases. They did not dare to make any excessive movements. Tang Zheng was like a little chick, swaggering out of the palace. The guards chased closely, but they did not dare to act rashly. They could only watch as the emperor was taken away. After passing through many palaces and walls, they came to the outermost area of the imperial palace. If they walked out, it would be a vast world, which would attract the attention of the people. At that time, when the people saw that the emperor had become a captive, it would cause a huge uproar. One could imagine the impact on the people. The emperor of a country became a captive. The confidence and dignity of the people would be severely damaged. Tang Zheng knew that the death of the emperor last time was no less than a nuclear explosion to the island nation. However, after Hirohito came to power, the island nation regained its vitality and gathered together. This wolf of wealth quietly lurked on the shores of Wuxia. Once it accumulated enough power, this wolf of wealth would open its mouth, bare its fangs, and take a bite of Wuxia. How could Tang Zheng give him this opportunity? So, he took advantage of this opportunity to cut off the Gordian knot and directly cut off their thoughts. He wanted to see if this heavy blow could completely destroy this nation, so that they would not dare to covet Wuxia for the time being. "Baka, stop!" Hirohito realized something and shouted in shock, trying to stop Tang Zheng. However, he was on the chopping block. What could he do to stop Tang Zheng? "Quickly stop him. Don't let him leave the Kokyo," Hirohito ordered hoarsely. The guards looked at each other and were about to move, trying to stop Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's lips curled. He placed Hirohito in front of him and said, "Come. If you want him to die faster, I don't mind dragging a dead dog to see your people." "Hirohito,
Do you want to see your people alive or see them in death? A single sentence was enough to stump Hirohito. Without a doubt, he did not want to die. He did not want to be dragged out of the kokyo like a dead dog. He did not doubt Tang Zheng's words at all. If he said it, then he would do it. Moreover, where there is life, there is hope. As long as he did not die, then there was a chance to make a comeback. If he died, then all the chances would be gone. Hirohito was silent. Tang Zheng smiled. It seems like you are a smart person. After saying this, he kicked the heavy door. With a rumble, the door collapsed. The people outside the kokyo were immediately attracted and turned their heads to look. Two people stood in the dust. One was like a god of war, standing proudly and insufferably arrogant. The other was like a stray dog, battered and exhausted, struggling for his life. Chapter 1105. The citizens stared at the scene with their mouths agape. The kokyo was the symbol of the island nation. For such an unbelievable scene to happen, people couldn't help but think of the disaster the kokyo had suffered last time. It hadn't been long. Was it going to repeat the same mistake again? Everyone's heartstrings trembled, and they couldn't calm down. However, their attention quickly shifted from the collapsed door to the two people. For the citizens of the island nation, Tang Zheng was a new face, but the other person was very familiar to them. In the past few months, he could be seen on TV almost every once in a while. His large posters and photos were spread all over the streets and alleys, and thousands of families. He repeatedly made impassioned speeches on TV, encouraging the citizens to gradually come out of the shadows, and vowed that he would definitely take revenge. This move pulled the people out of the swamp in time, allowing the people to find confidence again and sowing the seeds of hatred. In the future, as long as he waved his arm, the citizens would eagerly jump up, just like a few decades ago, and become his vanguard army to sweep everything. However, all of this was just Hirohito's beautiful wish. Tang Zheng's sudden action caused all of his hopes to vanish into thin air. When he saw the surprised and horrified eyes of the citizens, Hirohito was ashamed. His cheeks were red, and he couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. But he fell into the hands of Tang Zheng, and there was no way to find a hole to hide in. He could only lower his head dejectedly, like a defeated general. "Sky Emperor?" someone exclaimed, recognizing Hirohito. Hirohito heard the voice and lowered his head even more, as if he wanted to bury his head in his knees. The discussion became louder and louder like a tide, and there was a hubbub of voices. Although Tang Zheng didn't understand, he could see some clues from these people's expressions. He guessed that they must have recognized Hirohito. Looking at Hirohito's ashamed look, he deliberately raised him a little and asked, "Are you afraid?" Hirohito turned his head and begged, "Tang Zheng, please let me go. I will satisfy all your conditions." Tang Zheng said with a mocking smile, "Hee, didn't you want to tear me into pieces?" "No, I won't," Hirohito hurriedly denied. "Haha, it's too late. Don't think I don't know about your ambitions. You're in cahoots with the 100 Faces Star-Lord. You actually want to touch my company. Do you know that?" Tang Zheng scolded angrily. "No, you're mistaken. This isn't my idea. It's my idea. It's my idea. He's the one who wants your new medicine." Hirohito denied. "Ha!" Tang Zheng laughed loudly. "You underestimate the 100 Change Star Sovereign too much. With his personality, why would he care about such worldly things?" Hirohito's expression suddenly changed, not knowing how to refute. Tang Zheng sneered and said, "I'm not wrong, right? How could the 100 Change Star Sovereign be after such a small thing? You're the one who manipulated this matter, right?" Hirohito was speechless because Tang Zheng's judgment was right. Island Nation had many spies in Wuxia, and they had bribed many important officials. When the King of Medicine's new medicine approval report and procedures were submitted, it attracted the Island Nation's attention. This was because the medicinal properties of this new medicine were too strong. It could actually cure many chronic diseases. It was simply a divine medicine. Many people in Wuxia scoffed, thinking that the King of Medicine was old and muddle-headed. He actually made such an international joke. Even foreign countries couldn't create such a divine medicine, so what ability did the country have to create it? Many people in Wuxia didn't have any other ability, but their ability to belittle themselves and look down on their fellow countrymen was absolutely first class. Therefore, many people deliberately blocked the approval of the new medicine. However, this news was passed to the island nation. Hirohito immediately organized professionals to verify it. In the end, they believed that the king of medicine was cautious by nature, and it was impossible for him to make such a low-level mistake in his old age.
It was most likely true.
After coming to this conclusion, Hirohito issued a death order to obtain the prescription of the new medicine, as well as related research and experimental data at all costs. This divine medicine must be controlled by the island nation. In the future, they would definitely have a greater say in the world forest, a stronger position, and more resources and benefits.
Of course, this was a secret operation. The real purpose was hidden under a coat. Only a few people knew the truth, and even Wuxia officials didn't know the inside story. That coat was the best cover, because Hirohito announced to the outside world that he was taking revenge on Tang Zheng. After all, Tang Zheng had brought too much harm to the island nation. Wuxia officials didn't suspect any other reason at all. Instead, they were happy to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. After all, Tang Zheng was already out of control and wasn't bound by the authorities. It was better to let the island nation teach him a lesson. Naturally, Wuxia also had benefits for letting the island nation do as they pleased. On human rights and some sensitive issues, the island nation made some verbal promises. This made Wuxia feel that sacrificing Tang Zheng's interests in exchange for these was a very worthwhile trade. If you have nothing to say, then raise your head and let your citizens see your face clearly. Take a good look at them. This is the last time you'll see them.
Tang Zheng said with a smile.
What are you doing? Are you really going to kill me?
Hirohito was so scared that his whole body trembled and he asked with a pale face.
Is there even a need to discuss this question? Tang Zheng snorted and sneered.
No.
Hirohito shook his head like a rattledrum. You can't kill me. Even if I did this, I wouldn't have been able to do it without the cooperation of others.
Tang Zheng gradually frowned.
Do you have an accomplice? Who is it?
You're very familiar with him.
He's your chief. What, it's him?
Tang Zheng turned pale with fright and stared at Hirohito. His eyes were open, and it was obvious that he wasn't lying about this matter.
Tang Zheng was shocked.
The chief would deal with him. This was without a doubt.
However, he didn't expect that the chief would use the island nation to deal with him. This method wasn't honorable, and it was even a little despicable. He knew what kind of trash the island nation was, but he was still willing to cooperate with the enemy country. This was probably the face of a politician.
He gradually calmed down after his anger.
So what if this was?
For a politician, there were too many despicable things that they could do, not to mention the small matter. The chief had a high position in Wuxia, and he had challenged his authority time and time again. He probably already had a grudge in his heart. Now that there was an opportunity, he definitely wouldn't let it go.
Tang Zheng shook his head and laughed instead.
Hirohito looked at him in surprise and asked, "Aren't you angry?
Why are you laughing?
Did I not express the meaning behind it clearly?"
Tang Zheng looked at him indifferently and said, "You expressed it very clearly. Although I was a little surprised, but thinking about it carefully, what can I do? You should go look for him. He is someone from your own country, but he did this to you. If I had a citizen like you, I would definitely treat you as an important guest and satisfy any of your conditions. I definitely wouldn't stab you in the back," Hirohito said, fanning the flames.
"Ha ha ha, don't make yourself sound so noble.
You aren't much better than him." Tang Zheng laughed in disdain. Hirohito's face turned red.
He saw that his last hope had been destroyed.
The conflict and hatred didn't shift to anyone else.
Tang Zheng's gaze towards him was still filled with cold killing intent.
The citizens of the island nation discussed among themselves.
Their faces were filled with sorrow and fear, and it couldn't be wiped away.
The guards also chased out, but they stood at the door and didn't dare to act rashly. They were deeply afraid that Tang Zheng would directly kill the emperor in front of the citizens. Several groups of people gathered at the entrance of the Kokyo. They looked at each other and discussed, but they didn't know what to do. "Do you have anything to say to your citizens?" Tang Zheng asked.
Hirohito clenched his teeth and didn't say a word.
"You're not going to say anything? It's fine.
Tang Zheng shrugged. He flicked his finger and a wave of qi hit Hirohito's legs. With a pong sound, his knees hit the ground. He directly knelt on the ground. Time froze. It was as if everything was frozen. The citizens and guards opened their eyes wide. They looked at this scene in disbelief. Was this a dream? The emperor actually knelt down. There was gold under a man's knees. The emperor had a high status and was the representative of a country. The meaning of him kneeling was even more important. However, he knelt down just like that. Not only did he kneel, but he also represented the island nation. He represented the millions of citizens of the island nation. Didn't you always think that the invasion was wrong? Today, I want you to kneel down and kowtow to the souls that died under your knives and admit your mistakes. Tang Zheng's eyes were cold. He roared in a low voice. Hirohito's face turned red. He tried to resist, but it was to no avail. His body bent down uncontrollably. Pang! His forehead hit the ground heavily, leaving a trail of blood. Dark red blood flowed from his forehead, but he didn't have the chance to wipe it away. With another pung sound, he knocked on the ground, followed by another sound. 3 kowtows, 3 bangs. Each time, it was as if the entire island nation was kowtowing to the souls that died under their knives and admitting their mistakes. Island nation citizens seemed to have lost their souls. They stared blankly at this scene. Many people's eyes were red and tears flowed out. They kept begging, "Don't, Your Majesty." Tang Zheng wasn't soft-hearted. This was the price that they should pay for their ancestors. However, they refused to pay and even refused to admit that part of history. Instead, they mercilessly beautified it. This was like adding salt to the wounds of those who were harmed. If they didn't reflect and admit their mistakes, then they would feel pain. 10 times the pain, 100 times the pain. This was the price. The emperor closed his eyes. He couldn't bear to look at his citizens. His body trembled and he gritted his teeth. He wanted to tear Tang Zheng into pieces, drink his blood, and eat his flesh. Tang Zheng, I will kill you, and I will kill everyone you know, and I will kill all of your compatriots. The emperor roared hysterically. Chapter 1106. The citizens seemed to have lost their souls as they looked at this scene with different expressions. Tang Zheng picked up the Emperor Hirohito, ignoring the blood on his face, and strode towards the crowd. The citizens did not dare to stop him. In their impression, Tang Zheng's image suddenly became tall, like an invincible god of war, causing people to fear him. Island nation people were like this. The weaker you were, the more they would bully you. But if you were strong, then they would respect you and be afraid of you. Although they hated Tang Zheng to the core, they did not dare to resist. Instead, they automatically retreated to the sides, not even daring to look at Tang Zheng. However, they were after all ordinary citizens. To the guards, if the emperor was really taken away in front of everyone, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. It would be even more terrifying than a nuclear explosion. Thus, with an order, they finally did not care about the emperor's safety. They roared and rushed towards Tang Zheng. When the citizens saw the roaring guards rushing over, they screamed and fled in all directions. Tang Zheng glanced at them and did not understand their expressions. He tiptoed and flew into the air, landing on a tall building with the emperor. After a few leaps, they disappeared. The scene of the emperor kneeling down was recorded in time by the phone. Ordinary citizens treated this as a great humiliation, but there were many foreigners in the island nation. The person who recorded this scene was a foreigner. It was as if he had found a big news and spread it on the internet at lightning speed. This was really a big news. The video quickly spread around the world. Island nation's government immediately released a severely worded condemnation letter and listed Tang Zheng as a terrorist, threatening to kill him. Many countries that had a feud with the island nation were secretly delighted. They treated Tang Zheng as a hero. Of course, they still had to say high-sounding words. They went along with the island nation's condemnation, but in reality, they did not do anything. Island nation sent a note to Wuxia, ordering Wuxia to ask Tang Zheng to hand over the emperor. Otherwise, it would seriously damage the friendship between the two countries. Wuxia's officials immediately tried to contact Tang Zheng, but they could not find Tang Zheng at all, let alone ask him to hand over the emperor. This feat completely ignited the enthusiasm of Wuxia's people. Many people claimed that Tang Zheng was a national hero. Of course, there were also voices of condemnation, saying that Tang Zheng's crazy actions would drag Wuxia into a situation of eternal damnation and even cause a war. There was no need for Tang Zheng to refute it. A large number of netizens refuted this ridiculous argument, saying that this kind of person was worrying too much. Wuxia was no longer the sick man of East Asia decades ago. Wuxia had risen. If the island nation wanted to go to war, then let them pay back the crimes of decades ago with interest. Of course, the island nation was not stupid. The emperor was captured, and the country was in a mess. How would they dare to declare war on Wuxia? Weren't they courting death? Moreover, the Atlantic Empire did not support him as unreservedly as before. Since the fall of the Rockefeller family, the Atlantic Empire's days were not easy. They did not have the time to come over, so how could they have the leisure to go to the island nation? In the capital of Wuxia, the bureau chief was flustered and exasperated. He fiercely smashed a few vases before stopping. The anger in his heart could not help but surge out. The others kept quiet out of fear, not daring to act rashly. This Tang Zheng is lawless. He actually dares to do such a crazy thing. These years, our diplomatic relations with the island nation have finally normalized. With his actions, the two countries will be in conflict again. I'm so angry. The bureau chief continued to roar. Yes, Tang Zheng is unorganized and undisciplined. He should be severely punished. The subordinate agreed. Why is there still no news from Tang Zheng's side? The bureau chief took a deep breath and asked sternly. The subordinate said awkwardly, Tang Zheng is in the island nation. We can't contact him at all. His people don't know anything. Even if they know, they won't tell us. Humph. Does he really think that his small territory is a foreign country? The subordinate did not dare to answer. What exactly is Tang Zheng's motive for doing this? The subordinate hurriedly said, This is a little bit of a clue. It said that Tang Zheng is doing this because of the investigation of his pharmaceutical factory. He knows that it's the island nation's doing? Yamada must have died in his hands, so he must have found something. The bureau chief's expression kept changing. He pondered in his heart. This matter was getting more and more strange. Tang Zheng's actions were too abnormal. For a pharmaceutical factory, he went against the huge island nation. That was a country. It was no joke to become the country's public enemy. Even if he was a cultivator, it was not an easy thing to do. Could it be? Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. Could it be that the new drug he developed really has such a miraculous effect? That's why he made such a big fuss? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this matter was fishy. At first, he did not really believe in the effect of the new drug. However, after this incident, he realized that he seemed to have made a big mistake. He had underestimated the strength of Tang Zheng and the king of medicine. Get the investigation results from the pharmaceutical factory's investigation team out quickly. Find experts to verify it and show me the summary, the bureau chief said coldly. The subordinate did not expect his thoughts to change so quickly. He could not keep up with the pace and looked at him blankly. The bureau chief glared and asked, Don't you understand what I said? I understand. The subordinate suddenly understood. Although he did not quite understand, he could only do as he was told. Also, continue to contact Tang Zheng. I want to find out what exactly he wants to do. I also want to appease the island nation. Don't let them do anything extreme, the bureau chief ordered. They won't dare. Humph. Just carry out my orders. It's not up to you whether they dare or not. Yes. In another secret location in the capital, two people sat in a room, facing each other in silence. The television was broadcasting the scene of the emperor being kneeled down and then being taken away. The atmosphere was silent. After a long time, one of them sighed and said, I really did not expect him to be so daring. His way of doing things is so unpredictable. Haha, his goal is too simple. He wants to lure the snake out of its hole. I am that snake. A young voice sounded, but it was filled with a sense of fear. 100 Faces Star-Lord. Is Tang Zheng not afraid of you? With his cultivation level, he is not your opponent. He is not afraid of anything, just like me in the past. Now, I am admiring him more and more. You are relaxed. He has turned the spearhead to me, 100 Faces Star-Lord said meaningfully. Under the light, the two faces had different expressions. Their eyes revealed many things that were worth thinking about. If Tang Zhang saw this scene, he would definitely exclaim that Tian Chanzi was too amazing. He had actually calculated correctly. 100 Faces Star-Lord and Ji Wuxiang had secretly joined forces long ago. These two people were 100 Faces Star-Lord and Ji Wuxiang. Sitting opposite each other, the relationship between the two was self-evident. They had indeed secretly colluded long ago. Ever since the Azure Dragon Palace was destroyed and Ji Wuxiang escaped, he realized that the situation was more serious than he had imagined. After analyzing the situation, he realized that only by contacting the 100 Transformation Star-Lord would he be able to achieve his goal. Moreover, with the 100 Transformation Star-Lord as an ally, before his Heaven's Chess was completely successful, he could effectively restrain Tang Zheng's forces. This was an excellent opportunity. After he spent a lot of effort to find 100 Faces Star-Lord, the two of them had their own plans and actually succeeded in forming an alliance. However, the two of them did not truly turn enemies into friends. This kind of alliance could fall apart at any time. However, because there was an external force like Tang Zheng, this layer of relationship was very stable for the time being. In order to resolve Tang Zheng's last doubt, Ji Wuxiang asked 100 Faces Star-Lord to disguise himself as a great lord. Then, both of them put on a good show to deceive Tang Zheng. Then, Tang Zheng willingly completed the Heaven's Chess for him and activated the Star Force. Everything went smoothly. However, when Ji Wuxiang found out about the magical effect of the Red Lunar Beast, he was tempted. He tried to take the Red Lunar Beast for himself and consumed its inner elixir. Then, he would be able to activate the Star Force freely like Tang Zheng. He would not need to rely on others and be controlled by others. Unfortunately, he did not expect Xiao Bai to be so powerful. In the end, the matter was exposed in advance. He was caught off guard and completely broke off his relationship with Tang Zheng. As a result, his 100-year plan had to be put on hold for now. Of course, he did not give up. The mysteries of the Heaven's Chess could not be explained in a few words. He was confident that he could recreate the glory and great power of the Heaven's Chess. Tang Zheng spent so much effort to lure you out of the cave. What have you done to him recently? Ji Wuxiang did not have Li Palace. It was as if one of his eyes had been dug out. His intelligence was greatly reduced and a lot of information was blocked. Moreover, Tang Zheng had been searching for him all this time. He did not dare to act rashly. Naturally, he did not know about the pharmaceutical factory. 100 Faces Star-Lord was not in charge of the pharmaceutical factory. However, he knew a little about it. In his eyes, it was a small matter that was not worth mentioning. It was just that the island nation took it seriously. He snorted and said, "It's just a small matter. I think he just wants to use this opportunity to make me show myself." "Then will you show yourself?" "Since he made such a request, then I will naturally fulfill his wish. I will immediately return to Japan. Also, I will give him a huge surprise." The 100 Transformations Star-Lord's eyes flickered with a meaningful look as he said mysteriously. Ji Wuxiang stared at him and asked curiously, "What surprise?" 100 Faces Star-Lord laughed. "Just you wait. You will know the answer very soon." Ji Wuxiang frowned. He did not like the feeling of being kept in the dark. Because, he also liked to play this trick. However, he did not like others to play this trick on him. Ji Wuxiang snorted coldly in his heart. "I will let you be proud for a while. Once I master the Heaven's Chess, I will not be afraid of you 200 Faces Star-Lords." Chapter 1107. At dawn, Tang Zheng sat on a cliff and watched the sunrise. The sea breeze blew in his face, bringing with it a trace of coolness and the salty taste of the sea. Top, point, small, say, X. Behind him was a 10,000 zhang tall cliff. A few weeds poked their heads out from the cracks in the rocks, looking at the sea and braving the sea breeze. The cliff was bare and almost impossible to stand on. There was only a little bit of space for one to stand on. If an ordinary person was here, their legs would have already gone weak and they would have directly fallen off the cliff. This was because this was not a place that ordinary people could reach. Even Emperor Hirohito, who had experienced hundreds of battles and was a martial king, was trembling with fear due to his cultivation being sealed. He did not dare to act rashly and did not look down at the bottom of the cliff. The faint sound of waves hitting the reef was enough to let people know that if they fell down, they would definitely be smashed to pieces. Hirohito really wanted to push Tang Zheng, but in the end, he suppressed this thought. This was because he knew that this would not kill Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng could fly. This little trick would only add to the joke. He fiercely glared at Tang Zheng's back, as if his eyes could pierce through his broad back. He gnashed his teeth so hard that they were almost broken. Tang Zheng did not even blink. He glanced back from the corner of his eyes and said, "You want to kill me? Don't waste your energy. You won't have the chance. Your life has already come to an end. Cherish the last moments of your life." Hirohito's heartstrings trembled. His face was pale as he asked, "What are you waiting for?" 100 Faces Star Sovereign. Tang Zheng did not hide it. He has already gone to Wuxia. Why is he here? Tang Zheng smiled faintly. We put on a good show in front of the people of the world, and almost everyone in the world will see it. Of course, the 100 Changing Star Sovereign is no exception. Guess what he will do after seeing this good show? Hirohito was not an idiot. With a flash of inspiration, he understood the crux of the matter and said in realization, "You deliberately used me as bait to lure the 100 Changing Star Lord back to his country?" He's not that stupid. Will he come back? Hirohito didn't answer. After pondering for a long time, he still didn't have a definite answer. Although he had colluded with the 100 Transformation Star Lord, the 100 Transformation Star Lord had the absolute initiative. He did not know much about the 100 Transformation Star Lord, let alone predict his actions. You don't need to answer, because I already have the answer. With the pride of the 100 Change Star Sovereign, he saw through my purpose but still came to find me because the pride in his bones did not allow him to retreat. Tang Zheng smiled as he muttered to himself. Hirohito was shocked. He did not expect Tang Zheng to know so much about the 100 Transformation Star Lord. Could it be that the enemy really knew him the best? Although he didn't say a word, he already believed in Tang Zheng's judgment. Then how did he know you were here? Do you think the 100 Transformation Star Lord is as stupid as you? With his cultivation and intelligence, it wouldn't be difficult for him to track me here. Tang Zheng shrugged and said casually. Hirohito frowned. He didn't comment on Tang Zheng's deliberately mystifying actions. Isn't he here now? Suddenly, Tang Zheng's voice caused Hirohito's heartstrings to tremble, but when he looked around, he couldn't find any trace of the 100 Transformation Star Lord, so he couldn't help but ask, where is he? Obviously, he still had a trace of luck, and that was that the 100 Transformation Star Lord could kill Tang Zheng and save him. Tang Zheng's gaze drifted towards the surface of the sea. A figure gradually walked out from the surface of the sea. This figure wasn't tall, but it gave off the feeling of Mount Tai. Even an ordinary person could feel the aura clearly. Hirohito's pupils shrank as he also noticed the person on the surface of the sea. This person bathed in the morning light walked over from the surface of the sea. He didn't have a boat, but instead walked on the waves as if he was walking on flat ground. The distance was too far, so Hirohito couldn't see this person clearly even with half of his eyes, but he already knew who this person was. The 100 Transformations Star Lord. Only he had such an aura, walking on the waves as if he was walking on flat ground. That thin and small body contained a terrifying power. Hirohito's breathing couldn't help but quicken as a light appeared in his eyes. He bit his lips and silently prayed, 100 Transformation Star Lord, quickly kill Tang Zheng and tear him into pieces. Tang Zheng's expression was calm as he looked at the person walking over from the morning light. He felt the aura from the other party, but his heart was as still as water, like an ancient well without ripples. 100 Transformation Star Lord walked as if he was taking a stroll, but his speed was extremely fast. It didn't take long for him to arrive near the cliff. He raised his head and looked at the cliff. Although they were thousands of meters apart, the two pairs of eyes collided in mid-air. Invisible sparks seemed to collide as their eyes met, and a suffocating aura filled the air. Tang Zheng didn't move, but the sea breeze caused his clothes to flutter. 100 Transformations Star Lord moved. He raised his foot, and the sea water seemed to boil. A water column slowly rose like a water dragon, lifting 100 Transformations Star Lord into mid-air. Every time he took a step, a water column would immediately rise from the void. It was like a plum blossom pile. He stepped on the plum blossom pile and approached Tang Zheng step by step. The water column supported him as he walked thousands of meters in the air. It was a magnificent sight. If someone saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. In any case, Hirohito's body was trembling. He was so shocked that his eyeballs were about to pop out. He knew that 100 Transformation Star-Lord was powerful, but he didn't expect him to be this powerful. This kind of divine ability was something he didn't even dare to dream of, but 100 Transformation Star-Lord was able to use it so easily. He was trembling because of the lingering fear. In the past, he had wanted to kill 100 Transformation Star-Lord. He had decided that after everything was over, he would kill the huge threat that was 100 Transformation Star-Lord. Now, it seemed that this thought of his was very dangerous. 100 Transformation Star-Lord only needed to lift a finger to kill him. He stared hard at Tang Zheng, wanting to see his face and his reaction. However, Tang Zheng's back was facing him, and he couldn't see his face at all. However, Tang Zheng's lazy look was clearly visible. It was as if he didn't care about 100 Transformation Star-Lord at all. What was he relying on? How could he be so calm when facing 100 Transformation Star-Lord? Hirohito felt a deep sense of defeat. He had lived for more than half his life, but he couldn't even compare to such a young brat. He had really lived his life like a dog. Tang Zheng really didn't have much of a reaction. He just quietly watched 100 Transformation Star-Lord approach. In the end, when the two were about 10 meters apart, 100 Transformation Star-Lord stopped. He stood on the water column and looked at Tang Zheng from afar. It was as if he wanted to see the changes in him. He had to admit that Tang Zheng had indeed changed a lot. Especially after he absorbed the power of the stars, his cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. His aura had changed quite a bit. He just stood there casually, but he gave off a completely different feeling. This mysterious feeling couldn't be felt by ordinary people, but 100 Transformation Star-Lord knew it clearly. It made him involuntarily think of the first time he met Tang Zheng. In Buzhou Mountain, he wanted to catch Tang Zheng as a puppet and accompany him for a long time. In the end, Tang Zheng, Tian Chanzi, and the others successfully escaped. 100 Transformation Star-Lord took advantage of the opportunity to chase after them, but he also left Buzhou Mountain. If it wasn't for Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi's visit, 100 Transformation Star-Lord would definitely still be imprisoned in Buzhou Mountain. Therefore, 100 Transformation Star-Lord could regain his freedom because of Tang Zheng. However, 100 Transformation Star-Lord was never a person who knew how to repay kindness. He wanted to be straightforward and follow his own heart. Everything else was just a side branch that wasn't important. Now that Tang Zheng was his enemy, he didn't want to take him as a puppet. He only wanted to destroy him physically. Tang Zheng, you deliberately led me here. Do you think you've lived long enough? 100 Transformation Star-Lord looked at him with a smile and asked jokingly. He had the right to ask this question because his cultivation was indeed much higher than Tang Zheng's. Even if Tang Zheng was already at the 7th grade of the Yuanying realm, he was still far from 100 Transformation Star-Lord. After all, he was an expert in the divine transformation realm. Only the Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi could compete with him. Even Tian Chanzi was inferior. Tang Zheng was unmoved by his sarcasm and said indifferently, 100 Transformation Star-Lord, I've been looking for you for a long time. You actually went to Wuxia and were right under my nose, but I didn't notice at all. 100 Transformation Star-Lord smiled coldly. If I can't even do this, then wouldn't I have lived for 10,000 years in vain? Although he had lived for 10,000 years, he had been imprisoned in Mount Buzhou all this time. Even his cultivation didn't improve during this period of imprisonment. Instead, it regressed. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fallen to such a state. 100 Transformation Star-Lord knew this very well, so he had been trying to restore his former glory and glory. However, it was easier said than done. It wasn't something that could be done overnight. His cultivation was too high, so it wasn't as easy for him to recover as Tian Chanzi. This was because the further one cultivated, the more difficult it was. 100 Transformation Star-Lord was no exception. Haha, yes, 10,000 years. However, I think you've really lived for nothing. Tang Zheng said lightly. 100 Transformation Star-Lord raised his eyebrows and said angrily, Nonsense. What right do you have to judge me? Everyone in the world has the right to judge you. Because of what you've done, why can't they judge you? It's a pity that the Great 100 Transformation Star-Lord is colluding with Ji Wuxiang. TSK. TSK. This is so embarrassing. I'm afraid even the ancient people from tens of thousands of years ago will feel ashamed. Tang Zheng said jokingly. Haha, kid, you're quite eloquent. 100 Transformation Star-Lord is really getting worse and worse. He actually colluded with Ji Wuxiang. He really is an embarrassment to us ancient people. Qiyu jumped out and said. The inner demons didn't want to be left behind and said, if it wasn't for him breaking Mount Buzhou, he wouldn't be so famous. So, young man, don't be afraid of him. This time, we can teach him a lesson and help you vent your anger. Tang Zheng didn't say anything. Qiyu and the inner demons made it sound good, but they weren't going to do anything. 100 Transformation Star-Lord heard this and jumped up. He exclaimed, how do you know about me and Ji Wuxiang? Chapter 1108. If you don't want anyone to know, then don't do it in the first place. 100 Change Star-Lord. You colluding with Ji Wuxiang is no different from asking a tiger for its skin. Do you really think he will sincerely submit to you or help you? Tang Jing asked. 100 Change Star-Lord laughed loudly. Why would I need his submission or help? I'm just giving him some benefits. One day, after you and the Empyrean Fairy return to the West, he will naturally be my next target. No, he can't even be considered a target. I can easily kill you. Tang Zheng sneered. Your wishful thinking is too good. Unfortunately, Ji Wuxiang is not a pushover. He has been operating for so many years. How can he be destroyed with just a few words? You should know about the celestial chess, right? You helped him bewitch me, allowing the celestial chess to take shape. You haven't seen the power of the celestial chess, and you don't understand it. When the celestial chess is truly completed, whether it's you or the people of the world, no one can escape from his control. His ambition is even greater than Ji Wuxiang's. Although 100 Change Star-Lord had lived for so many years, his wisdom was definitely not as great as Ji Wuxiang's. This was because he had always lived in a world isolated from the rest of the world. There were no open struggles or secret struggles. Without experience, there was naturally no growth, especially in the aspect of wisdom. Of course, his ambition was not that great. He was not like Ji Wuxiang, who had the determination to rule the world. He was more like a child playing around. Everything had to be done according to his wishes. If it didn't work, then he would kill without hesitation. However, it was precisely this unbridled style of doing things that was very annoying. Go with the flow and you'll prosper, and go against it and you'll die. 100 Change Star-Lord raised his head and said unhappily, how can he be compared to me? If he wants to rule the world, why can't I? Haha, let me tell you, you've misjudged me. My ambition is greater than his. You'll see in a while. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. He suddenly had an ominous premonition and asked suspiciously, what do you mean by that? Haha, what do you mean? I also want to play around in this world. It will definitely be very interesting. Everyone in the world will be my toys. The 100 Transformation Star-Lord was in high spirits as he spoke. Do you think I'll let you have your way? Do you have the ability to stop me? If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to keep you here to see what I'm capable of, I would have killed you right now. 100 Change Star Sovereign snorted disdainfully. He did not put Tang Zheng in his eyes at all. I'll begin now. Watch carefully. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign raised his hands, and a mysterious power burst out from his palms. In an instant, the sky resounded with the sound of thunder. Dark clouds began to gather, and wind and waves began to blow on the sea. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Wave after wave surged from the seaside and fiercely slapped the reef. Pang, pang. The reef was smashed into pieces by the waves. The waves seemed to contain boundless power. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he asked, what are you doing? Didn't I tell you before? I'll let you see what I'm capable of. I want to be the master of this world. I also want to play. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign grinned, revealing a mouthful of snow-white teeth. His young face was filled with madness. What are you trying to do? Tang Zheng still did not understand his true intentions. Haha, if I want to play with the world in my hands, Of course I have to bring in a new power. Back then, I summoned the demons back, but in the end, it failed because of you. I learned from the painful experience and understood the reason. I was too merciful. Merciful? Tang Zheng clicked his tongue. Others could use this word, but the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign was not. Because of the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array, the act of summoning the demons back had killed tens of thousands of island nations' people. This method was not something an ordinary person could compare to. The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign did not pay attention to Tang Zheng's sarcasm as he muttered to himself, "Actually, you also played a part in this. The Tree of Life appeared in the world because of you. The Tree of Life improved the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Even the spiritual energy of the island nation became more and more abundant. This time, I was able to set up the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array more easily." What? You set up the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array again? Tang Zheng was shocked. He knew how dangerous the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array was. This was an array that went against heaven and earth. He did not expect the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign to set up such an array. He was truly insane to the extreme. Seeing Tang Zheng's shocked expression, the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign seemed to enjoy it. He excitedly said, "Are you afraid? You're crazy." "Haha, how could I be crazy? The Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array needs countless blood and lives as the price. How many people do you want to kill?" Tang Zheng asked with a pale face. "How many people? Let me calculate." I can't calculate it." The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign counted with his fingers for a while. "Actually, you don't need to calculate this because I'm prepared to use the lives of everyone in this country to activate the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array. How powerful do you think the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array will be? How many demons can it summon?" When he said this, Tang Zheng was so shocked that he almost fell off the cliff. He was not afraid but shocked. The way he looked at the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign changed again and again. In the end, he could not find any words to describe this person. The ancient said that 1,000 people would be killed and 10,000 people would be slaughtered. In front of the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign, these people were not even worthy of carrying his shoes. This was because he wanted to kill over 100 million people. The island nation had a population of over 100 million. In order to activate the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array and summon more demons, the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign actually wanted to kill over 100 million people. Even though Tang Zheng did not have a good impression of this country, when he heard this, he felt his hair stand on end. Even the rising sun could not dispel the chill in his heart. Not only Tang Zheng, but even Emperor Hirohito was shocked by these words. He still remembered the scene when the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array. Dark clouds covered the sky, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. It was as if the end of the world had come. There was a hole in the sky, and then a group of people fell from the sky. What left a deep impression on him was that he personally ordered tens of thousands of criminals to be brought out from prison and killed on the spot. It was simply a bloodbath and corpses were everywhere. Hirohito had killed many people, but when he saw that scene, he knew what it meant to have many people die. That scene was imprinted in his mind and could not be erased for a long time. Later on, he even had nightmares about it. This time, the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign wanted to activate the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array again to summon more demons. What Hirohito did not expect was that he wanted to use the lives and blood of all the people in the island nation as the price. He could no longer find the right words to describe this matter. As for his mood, it could be seen from his trembling body and mind. As the ruler of a country, no one would feel good if their own people were treated as worthless sacrifices. Of course, Hirohito was not a good person either. Last time, in order to curry favor with the 100 Faces Star Lord, he took the initiative to offer so many lives, which could be seen from this. However, it was different this time. If the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign succeeded, this country would cease to exist. Without his citizens, what was the use of him as the emperor? A commander without an army, a country of one person? He was not that stupid. Hirohito did his best to suppress the fear and anger in his heart as he loudly shouted, "100 Transformations Star Sovereign, you absolutely cannot do this." The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign rolled his eyes as he looked at him with disdain and said, "Why can't I do this? Then my country will be finished."
Hirohito bitterly said.
The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign was unmoved as he lightly said, "What does your country being finished have to do with me?"
What does it have to do with me?
These 4 simple words made Hirohito feel as if he was struck by lightning. He was the ruler of a country, but the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign was not. He could treat the people of the world as his toys, so why would he care about the lives of a mere country?
Hirohito's face became incomparably pale, but he did not give up.
He did not give up as he begged, "100 Transformation Star Sovereign, you really cannot do this. This will destroy my country and my citizens. They will all accept their fate."
Human lives? Is that valuable?
Since ancient times, human lives have been the most worthless, the least worth mentioning. Even if these few people die, there will be more in the future. Haven't you always been saying that the world's population is too large? I've helped you reduce it a little, so you should be thanking me. Moreover, the world has changed since the return of the demon race. What's the point of having so many people? The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign's attitude was cold and resolute, causing a chill to run down one's spine. Hirohito was so angry that he could not speak. He pointed at the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign, unable to say a single word for a long time, but the fear and anger in his eyes were clearly visible. Tang Zheng understood Hirohito's thoughts very well. He asked, "Weren't you still thinking that he would save you? This is inviting a wolf into the house. Now you know the consequences." Hirohito was so regretful that his intestines turned green. If he could do it all over again, he definitely would not have chosen to collude with Hirohito. No matter how great the temptation, he would have kept a respectful distance. But unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. He could only swallow the evil consequences he had sowed. He racked his brains and finally turned his gaze to Tang Zheng. His eyes gradually lit up as if he had grasped at a life-saving straw. He said impatiently, "Tang Zheng, didn't your Wuxia people always want us to admit to our history of invasion? As long as you stop the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign, I promise you that I will publicly admit to that history and compensate those who were harmed by the war." At the final juncture of life and death, Hirohito threw out what he believed to be a very important bargaining chip in an attempt to have Tang Zheng stop the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign's crazy actions. Tang Zheng stared at him coldly and said, "I don't need these false promises of yours. Even if you do, will you honor them in the end?" "I will honor them, I will." Hirohito nodded hurriedly. Tang Zheng sneered, but did not comment. How could he believe Hirohito's words? However, even without Hirohito's promise, he would not sit idly by. He was not simply doing this for the sake of the hundreds of millions of lives. This was because once the demon race returned on a large scale, there would be too many variables in this world. Those affected would not be just 100 million people, but everyone. Chapter 1109. Hearing the conversation between the two, the 100 Faces Star-Lord did not mind and said casually, "Tang Zheng, do you really want to stand up for him? This way, you will only die faster. You won't even be able to see the return of the demon clan. That scene will definitely be the most soul-stirring scene in this world. The pinnacle of novels." Tang Zheng remained unmoved. He opened his palm and a sword light flashed, reflecting the light of the morning sun. The War Soul sword quietly appeared in his palm. The tip of the sword pointed straight at the 100 Faces Star-Lord. The 100 Faces Star-Lord curled his lips in disdain and said, "Since you are in such a hurry to die, then I will fulfill your wish." After saying this, he lifted his leg and walked towards Tang Zheng. The water pillar once again rose into the air from the sea, supporting his legs as he quickly approached Tang Zheng. At the same time, the scene between heaven and earth was completely different. Huge black clouds completely enveloped the huge island nation. The waves roared, the wind blew, and the horizon was completely blocked by the black clouds. The world quickly darkened, as if it had turned from day to night. This scene alarmed everyone. Many people ran to the streets and alleys and raised their heads to look. Looking at the dark clouds that seemed to be about to fall to the ground and feeling the oppressive feeling coming from above their heads, everyone felt their breathing tighten at the same time, and their expressions changed greatly. They looked at each other in dismay, but there was nothing they could do. Yesterday, His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor had been kidnapped and there had been no news of him. Now, this strange scene had appeared in the sky. Could it be that the gods wanted to punish the island nation and the end of the world had arrived? Fear quickly spread. Many people ran in all directions, but the sky was filled with black clouds. There was nowhere to run. Many people stared blankly at the sky, indifferent. They were so scared that they didn't know what to do. In front of the cliff, the 100 Faces Star-Lord had already arrived in front of Tang Zheng. Their eyes met and they were just inches away from each other. Tang Zheng took the initiative to launch an attack. Ha! With a deep roar, Tang Zheng pointed his finger, and the battle soul flew towards the 100 Change Star-Lord. Yuanying's 7th stage power erupted in an instant, almost reaching the limit. The Yuanying in his body glowed with a mysterious purple light. After it circulated, it turned into streams of true qi, like a trickling stream, filling each of his meridians. Then, the innate qi gathered at the tip of Tang Zheng's finger. When he lightly pointed out, all of the innate qi poured into the War Soul Sword. In an instant, the War Soul Sword shone brightly, to the extent that it even glowed with a purple light. Whoosh! The War Soul Sword slashed towards the 100 Change Star Sovereign. The 100 Change Star Sovereign did not even blink. With a thought, a pillar of water soared into the sky and turned into a natural barrier, blocking the sword. The water column dispersed, and a strong wind blew like a storm, hitting the cliff. Tang Zheng did not move, but all the wind and rain could not get close to his body. On the contrary, the Emperor Hirohito at the side was drenched like a rat in soup, and was in a sorry state. His legs became more and more weak. His 10 fingers tightly gripped the cliff, resisting the storm with difficulty, so that he would not fall down and be smashed into pieces. Insignificant skill. Looking at the War Soul Sword that was facing him in mid-air, the 100 Faces Star-Lord spat out these 4 words in disdain. He took a few steps forward and closed the distance between him and Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng, be careful. The 100 Faces Star-Lord is determined to kill you. If you don't go all out, you will be in danger. The inner demons warned. Qiyu did not say a word, as if he had fallen into silence. No one knew what he was thinking. Ever since the 100 Faces Star-Lord revealed his grand plan, Qiyu had fallen into silence, absent-minded. However, at this moment, Tang Zheng was wholeheartedly focused on dealing with the 100 Faces Star-Lord, so he did not have the mood to figure him out. Don't worry, I've been going all out. Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and squeezed out a few words with difficulty. Then he roared, War Soul Sword kill. A ray of light flashed through his mind like lightning. His eyes lit up as he had a flash of inspiration. The Taiji 2 form sword technique had actually burst out again. He had learned a total of 3 moves from this set of sword techniques. However, if not for the critical moment, he would have completely forgotten about this set of sword techniques. Therefore, even if he wanted to practice this set of sword techniques, he would not be able to do so. At this moment, the 3 moves of the Taiji 2 form sword technique appeared at the same time. Tang Zheng's body immediately made the corresponding adjustments. His body and mind became one, and the 3 moves of the sword technique were executed in one go. The War Soul Sword drew a few large circles in the air and attacked the 100 Faces Star-Lord. The 100 Faces Star-Lord did not put this attack in his eyes at all. With a slap of his hand, a wave of sea jumped out from his palm. It was like an angry dragon that instantly welcomed the War Soul Sword. However, a strange scene appeared. The Berserk wave attack suddenly stopped, stopping in the large circle drawn by the War Soul Sword. The War Soul Sword flashed and directly pierced through the waves. Bang! The waves exploded and turned into seawater that filled the sky. The War Soul Sword cut through the thistles and thorns, passing through the waves and arriving in front of the 100 Faces Star-Lord. The 100 Faces Star-Lord was shocked. He never thought that the War Soul Sword would be able to break through his defense and attack a place that was just inches away from him. His eyes immediately burst out with a terrifying light as he roared, "Stop!" His 2 palms struck forward, and the waves that filled the sky smashed onto the War Soul Sword from both sides. The War Soul Sword's attack came to an abrupt end as it was pinched by the 2 huge waves and was unable to move. Break! Boom! 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 A long series of explosions came out from the waves. The War Soul Sword started to buzz and tremble. Its attack was completely disintegrated, and even the War Soul Sword seemed to be on the verge of being broken by this huge force. Tang Zheng's body and mind were greatly shaken, his power was gradually being consumed, the War Soul Sword was connected to his mind, so when the War Soul Sword was heavily injured, he naturally did not feel good, his face turned pale, and a trace of blood gradually flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Seeing Tang Zheng's reaction, the 100 Faces Star-Lord snorted coldly and said, "This is not over yet, you can't hold on anymore?" Tang Zheng clenched his teeth, channeled his power, and resisted. He did not immediately release the Shura, because when exchanging blows with an expert, especially an expert like the 100 Faces Star-Lord, he could always force himself into a desperate situation, reaching a kind of limit. Only in this way could he achieve the goal of tempering himself. Although the situation was dangerous, Tang Zheng still clenched his teeth and endured. Whiz! Suddenly, the War Soul Sword flew backwards, transforming into a ray of light that brushed past Tang Zheng's skin. The burning sensation caused Tang Zheng's entire body to quiver. Boom! The War Soul Sword stabbed into the cliff, almost to the hilt, causing rocks to fly everywhere. Hirohito was unlucky enough to suffer. He was beaten to the point that he grimaced in pain and sucked in a breath of cold air. Tang Zheng looked at the area below his ribs, where the War Soul Sword had just brushed past. His clothes had already been cut open, and his skin had also turned bright red. This was the power of the War Soul Sword. If not for the fact that the War Soul Sword was connected to his mind, at the last moment, the War Soul Sword would have used all of its abilities and deviated slightly, and he would have been pierced through by the War Soul Sword. Although his primal Chaos Vajra spell had been cultivated to the Vajra realm, it was still difficult for Vajra to resist the attack of a sacred artifact like the War Soul Sword. Hee, Tang Zheng. How about this move? You want to show off your insignificant skills in front of me? You're dreaming. The 100 Faces Star-Lord snorted disdainfully and mocked. Looks like you don't have any more moves. Hurry up and die. The 100 Faces Star-Lord attacked again. With a flick of his 5 fingers, 5 water pillars flew towards Tang Zheng with an oppressive aura. Tang Zheng turned around and grabbed the hilt of the War Soul Sword, trying to pull it out. However, the moment he grabbed the hilt, 3 rays of light flashed across his mind, and 3 bronze men appeared in his mind, quickly moving. Tang Zheng was so lucky that he almost exclaimed, "The new move of the Taiji two-form sword technique." This set of sword techniques had a total of 6 levels and 36 moves. Currently, Tang Zheng had only learned the first 3 moves of the first level, and these 3 moves were the last 3 moves of the first level. This caused Tang Zheng to be pleasantly surprised, because the power of the 3 moves that appeared at the same time was definitely not small. After the bronze man finished practicing the 3 sword techniques, he subconsciously followed the instructions and performed them. A strong sword intent gushed out, and with a boom, the cliff around the War Soul Sword exploded, and the War Soul Sword flew out from the cliff, once again seeing the light of day. A mighty sword chi surged out from the sword, and even Tang Zheng, the person who used the sword, could not help but feel a surge of emotions. He did not have time to think, and pointed his sword at the 100 Faces Star-Lord. The War Soul Sword flew out once again, but this time, it did not directly slash at the 100 Faces Star-Lord. Instead, it circled above his head, and in an instant, the aura of the world merged with the sword chi, causing an earth-shattering change. The 100 Faces Star-Lord looked at this scene in astonishment. He did not recognize the Taiji two-form sword technique, but when he saw this scene, he instinctively had a bad premonition. However, he did not put Tang Zheng in his eyes at all. He thought to himself that no matter how powerful this sword technique was, how powerful could it be? He was just worrying for nothing. He did not have time to think. With a grab of his hands, the seawater gathered into a large hand and grabbed towards the War Soul Sword. However, all of this did not go as he wished. With a few whooshing sounds, the War Soul Sword seemed to randomly slash a few times above his head. The scene changed drastically, and a Taiji yin-yang fish gradually appeared out of thin air. What the hell is this? The 100 Faces Star-Lord muttered to himself suspiciously. Humph, I don't care what you're doing. In front of me, all of this is nothing. The big hand suddenly grabbed over, trying to tear apart the Taiji yin-yang fish. The War Soul Sword stopped and stabbed into the Taiji yin-yang fish's young fish eye. In an instant, the Taiji yin-yang fish's black and white light immediately soared into the sky. Even the black clouds in the sky were torn apart, and a ray of sunlight pierced through the gaps in the black clouds. Tang Zheng was also completely shocked by this scene. He never thought that after completing the first level of the Taiji two-form sword technique, there would be such a qualitative change. Moreover, he had a strange feeling. In the past, after he used the Taiji two-form sword technique, he would immediately forget about the sword moves. But now, the 6 sword moves were vividly preserved in his mind, as if there were no signs of them disappearing. Could it be that after cultivating to the first level, the sword moves that he had learned would not disappear, but would instead be preserved forever? This discovery made him overjoyed. If not for this critical moment, he would have jumped up in joy. Chapter 11:10. Tang Zheng was well aware of the power of the Taiji Yin-Yang sword technique. This was a sword technique that was even more exquisite than the heavenly flying immortal sword technique. Once it was cultivated to the extreme, its power would be unimaginable. Apex novel. Of course, even if it was cultivated to the first level, the power of this sword technique was still an eye-opener for Tang Zheng, especially the Taiji Yin-Yang fish in the sky. He felt that this pattern was definitely not as simple as it looked on the surface. As if to confirm his guess, the Taiji Yin-Yang fish quickly rotated. The War Soul Sword was inserted into the fish eye of the Taiji Yin-Yang fish, constantly emitting light. The sword light and the Taiji Yin-Yang fish perfectly merged together. Seeing this scene, the 100-change Star Lord smacked his lips. With his experience, he had never seen such a scene before, nor did he know who created this sword technique. However, the pressure coming from above his head made him feel that his previous words were biased. This sword technique was definitely not as weak as he thought. If it fell into the hands of another expert, even he could not underestimate its power. It was a pity that Tang Zheng's cultivation was still too weak. Although the 100-change Star Lord had mixed feelings, he did not retreat. Instead, he focused all his attention. With a thought, the hand formed by the seawater tried to tear the pattern apart. Whoosh 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 whoosh. A series of air-piercing sounds suddenly rang out. It started to rain from the sky. Sword rain. Sword light fell from the Taiji Yin-Yang fish. Tens of thousands of sword light slashed towards the big hand. Puff puff puff. The big hand was instantly torn into pieces and scattered in the air above the sea. The 100-change Star Lord was startled. Although he had already realized the power of this sword technique, he was still deeply shocked when he saw this scene. Even he had misjudged it. It was enough to show how magical this sword technique was. Humph. So what if it's magical? The more magical it is, the more I want to destroy it. The 100-change Star Lord snorted coldly. Tang Zheng, you are very impressive. With your cultivation, you actually force me to use my magic treasure. 100-change Star Lord's voice was low. There was a sense of terror that did not match his young appearance. He waved his hand, and the celestial water banner flashed. It appeared before him out of thin air. It grew with the wind, and in a short while, it became a large banner. As soon as the heavenly water banner appeared, the sky changed again. The crack in the dark clouds gradually closed up. Sky water banner, water flood the blue sky. 100-change Star Lord roared. The sky water banner fluttered in the wind, and the banner's shadows kept churning. Whoosh! Like a whale sucking in water, a water column appeared in the sea. Then, it was swept up by the sky water banner. The small banner seemed to be able to contain endless seawater. The sea seemed to be sucked dry by the sky water banner. The sea level dropped rapidly. In the next second, the heavenly water banner unfurled again. With a rumble, the dark sky was completely filled with seawater, and it rushed toward the Taiji Yin-Yang fish. Water was the softest thing in the world, but it was also the hardest thing in the world. Using softness to overcome hardness, there was nothing it could not overcome. There was a loud rumble. The Taiji Yin-Yang fish was smashed into pieces by the seawater, turning into specks of light and drifting away. Wang. The War Soul Sword was the first to bear the brunt of the impact, and was even more affected by the seawater that filled the sky. In the end, it could not hold on any longer and fell into the sea. Puff! Tang Zheng spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes darkened. He and the War Soul Sword were connected by heart, and when the War Soul Sword suffered a heavy blow, it was as if he himself had suffered a heavy blow. Seeing that the War Soul Sword was about to fall into the sea and be swept into the dark waves, he did not care about his injuries and pain. He forcefully channeled his energy and suppressed his injuries. He gritted his teeth and growled, "War Soul Sword, come back!" Whiz! The War Soul Sword flew back shakily, its light dimming a little. Tang Zheng stroked it in pain, and the sword spirit said weakly, "Master, it's all because I'm useless." I couldn't block the 100 Change Star Lord's attack, and implicated Master. Don't say any more, rest first. Tang Zheng kept the War Soul Sword back into Sumeru world. 100 Change Star Lord looked at this scene and laughed complacently. Tang Zheng, how is it? Do you still think you're my opponent? Do you still think you can survive my attack? Let me tell you, all of this is just your wishful thinking. It's time for you to die. Tang Zheng took a deep breath, but did not reply. Instead, he continued to circulate his energy to take care of his body. Just now, he had indeed suffered quite a few injuries, and his fighting strength had been greatly reduced. Since the 100 Change Star Lord liked to show off, then he would let him show off to his heart's content. I'm being merciful. Although I wanted to kill you directly and not let you see the shocking scene, I changed my mind at the last moment. I'll let you see the next scene because I believe you'll feel even more despair. Haha, dying in despair is a punishment that makes me happier than killing you directly. The 100 Change Star Lord laughed wildly, without hiding anything. He raised both of his hands, aimed at the dark sky, and roared, with blood as a guide, sacrifice to the mountains and rivers, blood sacrifice to the mountains and rivers, return to the demon clan. Kacha! As soon as he finished speaking, a bolt of lightning lit up in the black clouds, as if it was a fuse. In an instant, lightning flashed in the black clouds, and thunder snakes surged. Bolts of lightning as thick as buckets fell from the sky, landing on all the lands of the island nation. Boom! 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 Like a bomb, after the lightning struck down, this part of the world turned into a sea of flames. With the power of the flames, the sea quickly spread, and many people were engulfed by the flames, disappearing into thin air. The people of the island nation watched this scene in a daze. Many of them were completely stunned. Even if the lightning landed not far from them, these people did not move at all, as if they did not see it at all. They were in a daze, and only their bodies were left. The three people at the edge of the cliff did not see the scene on the island nation's land, but they could clearly see the lightning that fell from the sky like hail. The 100 Change Star Lord enjoyed this scene very much, and a joyful expression appeared on his face. Emperor Hirohito's mind seemed to be pulled away, but it immediately returned to his body. His whole body trembled, and directly fell to the ground. He knelt down in front of the 100 Change Star Lord, crying and begging, 100 Change Star Lord, I beg you, please stop. The 100 Change Star Lord looked at Hirohito coldly and asked, Beg me? Haha, you don't know how many people have begged me, but do you know the result? Hirohito looked at him blankly. It's useless, hahaha. The 100 Change Star Lord laughed wildly. How can I, the 100 Change Star Lord, give up halfway because of other people's begging or obstruction? It was the same when I broke Mount Buzhou in the past, and it's the same when I activated the Mountains and Rivers Blood Sacrifice Array. No one can stop me. Crazy. He's really crazy. It's been 10,000 years, but the madness in his bones has not changed at all. Instead, it's getting more and more intense. Seeing this scene, the inner demons could not help but bitterly complain. Chiyu still remained silent. Chiyu, when did you become so quiet? The inner demons could not help but ask. Ever since the start of the war, Chiyu seemed to have become very quiet. He kept his mouth shut and did not say a word. Tang Zheng did not pay attention to the conversation between the two. He also stared blankly at the strange phenomenon in the sky. One could imagine the shock in his heart. He blankly muttered, Is the Mountains and Rivers Blood Sacrifice Array so powerful? Why wasn't it like this before? He did not know that the 100 Change Star Lord had spent a lot of effort and meticulously studied the Mountains and Rivers Blood Sacrifice Array for a long time in order to maximize the power of the Mountains and Rivers Blood Sacrifice Array. In the end, he improved the array himself and quietly set it up on the huge island nation. He only needed to wait for today, and everything would be done. He improved the array. The inner demons directly answered Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng suddenly realized, but his heart also trembled. The 100 Change Star Lord had really put in a lot of effort in order to let the demons return. Now that the array has been activated, what should he do? The array has been activated. With your cultivation, you can't stop him. The inner demon sighed and said helplessly, Can't stop him? Tang Zheng was shocked. No, if I can't stop him, then wouldn't the world be in chaos? Yes, but you can't do anything. Unless the Empyrean Fairy is here, Maybe he has a way to stop this catastrophe. The inner demon said helplessly. The Empyrean Fairy? Tang Zheng's eyes dimmed. The Empyrean Fairy was on the island. Distant water could not put out a nearby fire. This method would not work at all. No, I can't just sit here and wait for death. I want Shura to deal with him. Since the Empyrean Fairy can stop this catastrophe, Shura's strength is only higher than hers. He can definitely do it as well. Tang Zheng said impatiently. The inner demons was silent. He did not want to attack Tang Zheng. In his opinion, what the Empyrean Fairy could do, Shura might not be able to do it, even though his fighting strength was higher. This was because Shura was not under Tang Zheng's control. He was a killing machine that could only do simple fighting and killing. He could not do more delicate work. But now, he was treating a dead horse as a living horse. He did not want to refute Tang Zheng and attack his confidence. Hey, Qiyu, are you mute? Why are you acting so strange today? The inner demons held back for a long time before finally pointing the spearhead at Qiyu. But after waiting for a long time, Qiyu still did not answer him. The inner demons had no choice but to shut up resentfully. Looking at the increasing number of lightning bolts in the sky, the explosions between heaven and earth covered the sound of surging waves, making one's hair stand on end. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and secretly called out, Shura, come out! With a thought, Shura flew out from Sumeru World. His huge body was like a giant standing between heaven and earth. Shura flew into the air and suddenly opened his tightly closed eyes. The suppressive effect of the Ksitigarbha Sutra immediately collapsed. The violent killing intent in his eyes soared to the sky as if it wanted to break through a large hole in the dense black clouds. What a familiar killing intent! The 100 Faces Star Sovereign cried out in surprise and looked over. When he saw Shura, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His gaze froze as he said in a daze, What the hell is this? He did not recognize Shura, but he was very familiar with that killing intent. This was because not long ago, the same killing intent had appeared in the capital. He did not go to the Go Club, so he did not see Shura. Chapter 11:11. What the hell is this? 100 Change Star-Lord looked at the Azura in shock. Even with his tens of thousands of years of experience, he still could not recognize what the giant thing in front of him was. Translation, Azura. Tang Zheng answered. Azura? 100 Change Star-Lord was stunned. He knew very little about the world of spirits and souls, so he was still at a loss. What's an Azura? It doesn't matter what he is. As long as he can deal with you, that's enough. Humph. Deal with me? Dream on. Although 100 Change Star-Lord realized that the Azura was powerful, he did not think that the Azura was his opponent. Therefore, he was still very confident. Whoosh! The sky water banner waved, and the monstrous sea water rushed into the sky and swept over. Tang Zheng did not move at all. When the Shura sensed the threat, he immediately reacted. His huge eyes widened as he glared at Tang Zheng. A baleful aura that soared into the sky immediately enveloped the 100 Transformation Star-Lord. 100 Change Star-Lord felt a chill all over his body as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He quickly activated his secret technique to resist the bone-chilling cold. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he locked onto the Azura. The sky water banner swept up the seawater and attacked the Azura from all directions. Roar! 100 Change Star-Lord let out an earth-shattering roar. The world seemed to be pierced by this sound. His huge body directly pounced on 100 Change Star-Lord. A cold light flashed in his hand, and the Azura saber appeared. Whoosh! The aura between heaven and earth was completely stirred up by this saber. The Azura saber violently slashed at 100 Change Star-Lord. Boom! The Azura saber and the seawater collided. Space and time seemed to have frozen. The huge roar caused tinnitus in people's ears. In an instant, nothing could be heard. Only the scene in front of them showed everything that was happening. It was like a pantomime. The seawater was split open by the Azura saber. Then, the gap grew bigger and bigger as if it was splitting heaven and earth. The energy that burst out from it almost made people's hearts stop beating and breathing difficult. The Azura saber did not stop its attack. It split the waves like a hot knife through butter and landed on the sky water banner. This time, there was no loud noise. The attacks of the two magic treasures stopped abruptly in midair, but a dazzling light burst out. In an instant, the world was covered by this light. Tang Zheng, multiform Starlord, and Hirohito subconsciously closed their eyes. In the next second, they hurriedly opened their eyes and widened their eyes. The dazzling light dissipated and the scene in front of them turned upside down. The heavenly water banner flew out of the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign's hand. The Azura stood there proudly. The Azura saber flickered with a dim light and emitted a terrifying pressure. It was clear that the Azura had won this round. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign stared blankly at his empty palm. He felt as if he was dreaming. He was actually no match for the Azura. He had been defeated in one strike. One had to know that he had used his full strength in this attack. His lifetime of cultivation was actually unable to gain the upper hand in front of the Azura. The Azura did not have so many complicated thoughts. He was like a single-celled organism. His only thought was to kill. Kill everything in front of him. Seeing that the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign was in a daze, the Azura made a prompt decision. He attacked with lightning speed again. The Azura saber directly greeted the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign's head. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign retreated in panic. He waved his hand and the Sky Water Banner flew in front of him again. Although the Sky Water Banner flew out of his hand, it was not completely out of his control. The Sky Water Banner blocked the Azura saber's attack again. The Azura became braver as the battle went on. He was like a warrior who did not know fatigue. He attacked one after another, making the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign unable to take it all in. Hirohito watched this scene in a daze. In his worldview, the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign was already extremely powerful. He did not expect such a heaven-defying thing like the Azura to exist. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. Even in his dreams, he did not expect that there would be such a pleasant surprise when he coincidentally took in the Azura. He did not know if the Dizong of Goguryeo had considered this and deliberately taught him the Ksitagarbha Sutra to suppress the Azura. If not for the Ksitagarbha Sutra, he would not have been able to suppress the Azura. Naturally, he would not have been able to use the Azura to deal with Ji Wuxiang and the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign was almost driven crazy. He kept retreating. This can't go on. I have to think of a way to counterattack. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign suddenly raised his head and looked at the black clouds in the sky. The black clouds were getting thicker and thicker. A vortex gradually formed in the sky. This vortex was so big that it almost covered the sky as far as the eye could see. The Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array is almost completed. I have to put in more effort. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign secretly circulated his energy and activated the array. In an instant, the seawater boiled and water vapor quickly rose. The sea level rapidly dropped. The huge island nation's land was covered in blood. Blood soared into the sky and flew into the dense black clouds, dyeing the black clouds with a layer of red. The lightning continued to fall, reaping one life after another. Screams resounded through the sky. The island nation had turned into a hell on earth. Suddenly, bang! A person exploded. Following that, people exploded one after another. They were not struck by lightning but exploded without any warning. This scene caused more panic for the others. Everyone wanted to escape, but there was nowhere to run. They could only watch each other turn into blobs of blood. A formless energy pervaded the world. This was the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array's power increasing. There was no need to kill people personally. The array's power killed people directly. Emperor Hirohito was originally dumbstruck as he watched the battle between the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign and the Azura. Suddenly, his body trembled. A formless energy rushed into his body from the outside and then rushed out from the inside. His body was like an inflated balloon that was about to be torn apart by this energy and explode. What's going on? Hirohito screamed in shock. Tang Zheng also felt this strange energy, but his cultivation was profound and could resist this energy. He did not feel it as deeply as Hirohito. Hirohito felt immense pain. He furrowed his brows, and his facial features twisted together like an abstract painting. Tang Zheng, save me. I beg you, save me. Hirohito pleaded weakly to Tang Zheng. What's wrong with you? I feel like I'm going to explode. Explode. Tang Zheng could not help but think of the feeling when the pure yang energy in his body exploded. It was as if the pure yang body wanted to break through the restraints of his body. But it was clear that Hirohito was not because of the pure yang energy, but because of other forces. He subconsciously looked at the 100 Transformations Star-Lord. Could it be that all of this was his doing? Seeing that Tang Zheng did not respond, Hirohito used all his strength to roar at the 100 Transformations Star-Lord. 100 Transformations Star-Lord, what did you do to me? The 100 Transformations Star-Lord sneered. Of course, this is the power of the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array. Do you think the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array that I modified is so simple? This is already a new array, and its power is completely different. Hirohito, slowly feel this power. Haha, you should feel honored to be the first batch of people to experience the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array that I modified. I don't want it. You crazy bastard. I shouldn't have trusted you back then. You destroyed me and my country. I'll kill you. Hirohito roared hysterically. However, this shout was pale and powerless. To the 100 Transformations Star-Lord, it did not have any deterrent effect. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. He did not see the scene in other parts of the island nation, and he did not know that countless people were dying rapidly to hasten the success of the array. But he already had an extremely strong sense of unease. He shouted to stop him, 100 Transformations Star-Lord, stop right now. The array has already been activated, and it is impossible to stop. Tang Zheng, enjoy the power of the array. But don't worry, with your cultivation, you will not be affected much by the array. You will be honored to see the array succeed and the return of the demons. Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, a scream rang out, but it stopped abruptly. Then there was an explosion. Emperor Hirohito's body exploded, turning into flesh and blood that scattered with the wind. The emperor of a country couldn't even withstand a single blow from the formation. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. He wanted to kill Hirohito, but he never thought that Hirohito would end up like this. His eyes turned cold, and his killing intent surged. Since Hirohito could not escape the fate of exploding, then it would be even more difficult for the rest of the island nation to escape. Maybe they were already dead. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord said that he would use the lives of more than 100 million people in the island nation to activate the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array. It seemed that he really did it, and it succeeded. The cruelty of the 100 Transformations Star-Lord had already exceeded Tang Zheng's bottom line. Although he hated the island nation, he still did not have such a vicious mind to kill everyone in the country. But the 100 Transformations Star-Lord did it without any hesitation. He seemed to have lost the feelings and sympathy that a normal human should have. 100 Transformations Star-Lord, you should not exist in this world. Tang Zheng roared. He could not help but regret that he had unintentionally entered Buzhou Mountain and released this demon. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord laughed. What right do you have to judge me? Let me tell you, the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array has been successfully activated. Boom! A loud sound came from the sky, and the dark clouds underwent a huge change. The vortex in the middle of the dark clouds was completely formed, and it kept spinning. In the end, it turned into a big hole, and there seemed to be many figures appearing in the big hole. Tang Zheng immediately recalled the scene when the Blood Clan activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array at the peak of the Heavenly Mountain. It was just that the current Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array was even more powerful, which also meant that more Demon Clan S were about to return. Tang Zheng's face became very ugly. He wanted to stop all of this, but he was powerless and could not do anything. The 100 Transformations Star-Lord fought as he retreated. He looked up at the sky from time to time, and his eyes were full of a smile. He was not unfamiliar with this scene. Last time, the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array only allowed a small number of demons to return. They did not make a splash in this world at all, and then they were wiped out by Tang Zheng and his people. This time it was different. The return of a large number of demons could not be stopped by any force. Not even Tang Zheng and the Empyrean Fairy. When the time came, as long as the 100 Transformations Star-Lord gave the order, who could be his opponent? You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.